Set the playback speed at 0.5x for smooth experience.
From the crack of dawn to dusk, our boy is on a mission. At 7 a.m., he's out running 10 kilometers in the rain, like he's auditioning for a sports drink commercial. By noon, he's going all out, throwing 500 head strikes like he's got beef with a punching bag. Then at 5 p.m., he's hitting the gym, knocking out 10 sets of bench presses, squats, and deadlifts. His muscles are probably staging a protest, but our MC doesn't care. 14 days of this madness, and he finally snaps. He storms into his boss's office, slaps down his resignation letter, and leaves without a word. Someone once asked him if he had lost his mind. He thinks now maybe it would be better if he had. After all, sanity seems more like a nuisance these days. His eyes fall on a status window that ominously flashes. The door to the end of days is opening soon. The universe is not subtle with its hints. The message recommends some last-minute prepping, strength training, cardio, and kendo. Because why not? If the world's ending, you might as well be ripped. The countdown ticks ominously from 5 seconds to 0, making his heart race like he's at the starting line of a marathon. Flashback to 15 days ago, and it was a wild day in Gyeonggu. Phones everywhere start blaring with a disaster alert, talking about monsters near Inwang Mountain and suggesting, ever so politely, that people evacuate immediately. Panic hit the streets like a bad plot twist. A student, thinking it might be a prank or some weird social experiment, gets another alert, this time about monsters near Sorak Mountain. Because why not spread the joy? More notifications follow. It's like the monsters got an invite to a global party, but just when it seems it can't get worse, another notification pops up. Monsters have appeared, not a joke. Thanks for the clarification, because people were really starting to doubt this wasn't an April Fool's prank gone too far. A streamer named Sarkarella is live on the scene, hiding behind a tree like he's in the world's worst nature documentary. He's filming a giant figure while his voice trembles like a tuning fork. Comments roll in, half of them roasting him. Someone suggests he play red light, green light with the monster. And then there's a classic comment, this is why men die faster. But suddenly, one comment stands out, pointing out that the monster is moving. The chat lights up with warnings, but the streamer dismisses them until a growl echoes from right behind him. Cue the collective scream from everyone watching. Our MC nearly drops his phone when it screams too, startling him more than his morning alarm. He squints at the screen, wondering why this video looks way too real to be CGI. Walking through a crowded square, he sees that everyone else seems glued to their phones, reading the same disaster alerts. He mutters to himself, what's happening today? He's got enough on his plate without adding monsters into the mix. Making a living is hard enough as it is. As he walks, something catches his eye. A goblin, shackled and panting like it's just escaped from a dungeon. He freezes, feeling a chill crawl down his spine. Should he run? He mutters something about it being the day the math teacher comes, hoping the goblin understands human awkwardness. But instead of attacking, the goblin gives him this look. You know the one, the help me eyes. It's like a stray puppy, only, way uglier and with a shackle on its leg. Our boy feels torn. A monster with puppy eyes? That's emotional blackmail right there. He mentally fights with himself, reminding himself he's human, and it's a monster. But then, the goblin pulls out a tiny photo of its family and wipes its tears with a handkerchief. Seriously, what's next? A sob story about how it just wants to see its goblin kids graduate? Hoyoung's brain short-circuited for a second. This had to be a joke, right? Still, he decided to help. And just like that, he's holding a small pouch with a shiny golden ball inside. A system window pops up, reading Silver Goblin Pill. The description says, once consumed, one will obtain, and leaves it at that. Cliffhanger much? He stares at the pouch, wondering what on earth just happened. Who even eats something as suspicious as this? He reaches out to the system message, half expecting it to be solid, but his finger passes through like it's a hologram. Before he can ponder more, a news anchor's voice blares from a nearby TV, talking about large towers appearing all over the world, and the army that went inside lost contact with the outside world. Great, just what he needed, more apocalyptic news. He stands there, staring at the TV, a million thoughts racing through his head. Just then, a loud explosion shakes the ground, rattling the windows. It's not every day you get to see a Tower of Doom live on TV. Chaos explodes everywhere. People are running, screaming, doing everything but staying calm. TV channels are in full-blown panic mode. In Korea, a massive tower has just popped up out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Hoyoung stands there, fists clenched, eyes glued to the tower outside. The status window is still yammering about the Silver Goblin Pill. He's hesitating but knows he's got to do something. So, he swallows the pill, thinking, well, if this kills me, at least I won't have to pay off my student loans. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation spread through his body. His eyeballs dart around, and a status window pops up, announcing he's unlocked the Sage's status window. Fancy. It claims to provide the highest survival rate in this chaos. A blue light shines, and out of nowhere, a book materializes in his hands. He opens it, and a blinding flash surrounds him. The book merges into another status window titled Guide, announcing that the world's countdown to doomsday is officially ticking. With 15 days to go, it advises him to start some serious strength training, because apparently push-ups are the answer to the apocalypse. Fast forward to now, and our boy is staring at the status window, which reads, the door of the end has opened, and he's suddenly in a forest. Not quite what he pictured the end of days to look like. He glances at the sword slung behind him. The status window kindly labels it blunt sword. Well, that's reassuring. More windows pop up, informing him that the game has officially started and the tutorial is beginning, because nothing says welcome to the apocalypse like a tutorial level. After an aptitude test, he's assigned the class combat swordsman. He's shocked. Another window instructs him to open the status window for more details. It's like trying to read the terms and conditions in a video game. Overwhelming and probably filled with important stuff he should pay attention to. He checks his profile, seeing he's a level 1 combat swordsman with basic swordsmanship skills and access to the Sage's status window. His HP is full and he's got 10 MP. No points to allocate yet. He swings his sword, getting a feel for this new reality. Apparently, he has to survive in the forest for an hour or find an exit. Seems like a fair trade for a tutorial. The Sage's status window pops up, offering him a survival guide. It suggests he use all 60 minutes to hunt monsters, because apparently going for the exit is for quitters. He realizes the window knew this would happen, which is either comforting or creepy. Deciding to follow the guide, he ventures deeper into the forest. Soon enough, he spots movement. A small, one-horned raccoon. Cute, but it's still a monster. The raccoon growls and leaps at him, but Hoyoung, with his newly acquired reflexes, strikes it down. He gains some experience points, which is a nice bonus. He notes that his basic swordsmanship consumes 2 MP per use. With only 10 MP, he can swing his sword with skill 5 times before running dry. Efficient hunting is key. He slashes through more raccoons, thinking of basic swordsmanship. After the last one falls, he levels up to 2, regaining his HP and MP. He now has 2 points to spend, which is like getting a bonus stats in a game. Just when he's feeling good about himself, a new status window appears, explaining the weight of knowledge. Having the Sage's status window means he'll level up slower than others. Great. He gets an overpowered tool and they hit him with a penalty. Frustrated, he checks his status again. Everything looks the same except for one thing, he still has points. He thinks hard, realizing that if he plays this right, it's not a penalty at all. It could be a game-breaking ability in disguise. Hoyoung was in the thick of it, swinging his sword with wild determination. The raccoon stood no chance against his fierce slashes, and one by one, they fell. His eyes flickered toward the floating status windows that popped up in front of him. A rush of excitement surged through him. He gained experience points and leveled up to 2. But before he could even finish the thought, the windows vanished into thin air, leaving him with a furrowed brow. His stats were back to level 1 as he had expected. However, the silver lining was that his remaining points were steadily increasing. It dawned on him that the more he leveled up, the more experience points he would need for the next level. This sparked an idea. Maybe it'd be smarter to boost his stats directly instead of grinding levels the old-fashioned way. Lost in thought, he contemplated his next move. His gaze shifted over his available options. Stamina, strength, agility, and sensitivity. Strength and agility seemed like the go-to choices for a combat swordsman. more power for attacks and faster reflexes to dodge blows. But our boy had a different idea. He decided to boost his sensitivity stat by 4, and a new status window popped up to confirm his progress. It's not every day you see someone beefing up sensitivity, but hey, even swordsmen need to feel things, right? With his plan in motion, Ho-young kept on slicing through the one-horned raccoons. They were just tutorial monsters after all, and they were practically folding under his blade with the default stats. Glancing at the status window, he noted he had a full 60-minute tutorial to slay as many of these critters as possible. The real challenge wasn't defeating them. It was finding enough of them within the time limit. Luckily, with his sensitivity cranked up to 20, spotting them became a breeze. RMC was feeling pretty good about himself, almost giddy. He thought he could sense a sort of chi, which was a fancy way of saying, I'm awesome. But just as he was riding that high, a dark energy loomed behind him. The joy vanished as quickly as it came. A notification informed him that he defeated all the monsters and triggered a hidden quest. Great, because things were going way too smoothly, right? A roar ripped through the air as a giant, red ore-covered monster emerged. A level 2 one-horned raccoon alpha. Ho-young felt a wave of dread. This was no ordinary raccoon. It was the boss. The alpha lunged at him with alarming speed, and RMC barely managed to dodge in time, heart pounding in his chest. The ground shook with the beast's landing, and Ho-young realized he was in for a real fight. The raccoon charged again, and with a determined swing of his sword, Ho-young managed to slice through it. Relief washed over him. This was doable. The status window confirmed his victory. The boss was down, the hidden quest was cleared, and he even earned some gold. Not bad for a day's work. Breathing heavily, he looked at the raccoon alpha's lifeless body, pride swelling as he noticed he'd hit level 7. The window informed him that he had completed the tutorial. He hadn't expected the hour to stretch so long, but it was finally over. Or was it? Suddenly, he found himself in a different place altogether, surrounded by a crowd of confused people. A voice crackled through a speaker, welcoming them and announcing their successful completion of the tutorial. The crowd hung on every word as the voice continued, explaining they were now in the lobby of the tower, specifically the C2567 region. Ho-young's mind raced as he counted 14 men and 11 women. Did all these folks finish the tutorial too? Behind him, someone muttered about being in another place again, while a man demanded to be sent home. The scene was utter chaos. People crying for their moms and insisting it was all a dream. It was like a bad episode of a reality show. Ho-young understood their panic. The entire world had flipped on its head in one day. He clenched his fist, telling himself to stay calm and focus on survival. Then, a woman's voice cut through the noise, asking where they were. The answer came from a mysterious voice, explaining they were in the Tower of the End. As if this day couldn't get any weirder, she looked down to see a rabbit-like creature that identified itself as Kumkum, a level 55, and the lower floor manager. Apparently, the tower had its own HR department, complete with cute but deadly mascots. Disbelief spread through the crowd as someone suggested it was a kid in a rabbit suit, while another person questioned if this creature was responsible for their current predicament. Kumkum took all this in stride, thinking their reactions were perfectly normal. When someone asked what they were supposed to do now that the world was ending, Kumkum responded with a sinister chuckle, informing them that they'd all be playing a game with their lives on the line. Because, that's just what you want to hear after surviving a life-threatening tutorial. The crowd erupted into chaos, but Ho-young, fighting to keep his composure, asked if they could return to their normal lives by reaching the tower's top. Kumkum, with a mischievous wink, said it didn't know. Thanks for the comforting words, Kumkum. Frustrated, Ho-young pressed on, asking what the point of climbing the tower was. Turning its back, the creature cryptically stated that some things didn't need meaning and warned that only death awaited those who didn't climb. A hush fell over the crowd at that ominous declaration. Kumkum casually mentioned that many people had already perished in the tutorial. Shock hit Ho-young like a ton of bricks. He hadn't considered that. It was just a tutorial, but it seemed many hadn't made it through. Faces of strangers flashed in his mind, and despair gripped him. Kumkum then asked if anyone was willing to kill it, promising a special reward. RMC's mind raced. Was this a trap? Despite Kumkum's cute appearance, it was still level 55. He decided to play it safe and watch how this unfolded. A status window advised him to help Kumkum get home, leaving Ho-young conflicted. Meanwhile, a brave, or perhaps foolish, man stepped forward, volunteering to kill Kumkum, claiming that if it wanted to die so badly, he'd gladly help. Our boy felt a pang of regret. He was too late to act. The man charged at the rabbit, ready to deliver a mighty blow. But with surprising agility, Kumkum landed a powerful punch to his face, sending him flying. And there it was, the first lesson of the day. Don't mess with the cute ones. They punched back. The crowd was stunned into silence. Kumkum sarcastically apologized for the accidental counterattack, and panic spread like wildfire. People screamed and ran in every direction, shouting about the man's untimely demise. Ho-young, rooted to the spot, was consumed with fear. That could have been him. Kumkum, reverting to its original form, tried to reassure everyone, laughing off the incident as a simple mistake. Sure, like accidentally sending someone into orbit was a minor slip-up. The status window reappeared, urging Ho-young to help the rabbit get home. Doubt gnawed at him. Was the guide trying to deceive him? This was not what he had signed up for. But then again, who could say what was real or fake in a tower with killer rabbits? Kumkum, ever the charmer, decided to keep the party going by casually asking if anyone wanted to help it clock out early. The room fell into an eerie silence, the kind that makes you wonder if you should have stayed in bed that morning. Ho-young started to suspect that the guide had been playing tricks on him. Why would it lie? Suddenly, a new window titled Sage's Status Window appeared in front of him. Intrigued, he examined the options, Sage's Eye, which would let him see other status windows and guide to call for assistance at critical moments. Of course, the catch was that picking either would slow down his leveling compared to everyone else. Classic. Ho-young pondered the Sage's Eye. As he glanced at Kumkum, the gears in his mind started turning. He opted for the Sage's Eye, and a grin spread across his face. It was as if a light bulb had gone off, and he finally understood the situation. Kumkum, playing the part of the innocent creature, claimed it just wanted to go home. Our boy raised his hand, volunteering to help, a surge of determination coursing through him. Maybe the guide hadn't been lying after all. Kumkum, quick to call him out, loudly announced Ho-young's name and level. Not missing a beat, he declared that his level wasn't important when he was just trying to do a good deed. Kumkum, with a fierce look, agreed and urged him to get on with it. Just as things were heating up, a woman from earlier piped up, reminding Ho-young of the danger they had just witnessed. A chorus of voices joined in, urging him not to do anything reckless. But with a calm resolve, he assured them he had a plan, leaving the woman speechless and the crowd uncertain. Facing Kumkum, he declared they were about to see something interesting, gripping his sword tightly. The air was thick with anticipation. Kumkum, now brimming with excitement, transformed and ready to punch. Ho-young stood his ground, his eyes locked on the rabbit's fist as it approached with alarming speed. He remembered an earlier announcement about there being 25 people, but Kumkum had only mentioned 24. The omission of the level 55 monster had to be a psychological ploy to sow fear. As the punch drew near, the crowd collectively held its breath. In a split second, Ho-young dodged and counterattacked. Using the Sage's Eye, he confirmed his suspicion. There were only 24 people here to begin with. A status window popped up near the body of the supposed dead man, revealing that it was merely a hologram created by Kumkum. Complimenting Ho-young on his quick thinking, Kumkum showed its profile. Everything 0, level 55. It explained it wasn't its true form, just a hologram that vanished when damaged. The revelation left everyone stunned. With a final flourish, Kumkum disappeared, leaving behind a small blue-green ball labeled Stat.1 and a parting message for the courageous. May the odds be with them. The crowd buzzed with confusion and curiosity. A hologram? It had all been a fake? They murmured amongst themselves. A man approached Ho-young, asking how he knew. He explained that he saw blood pass through Chai Yisol, who stood so close that she should have been drenched in it. Her eyes widened in realization as she checked herself. Ho-young concluded it had all been a show, though he thought it best to make up an excuse. Before he could relish in his small victory, A red-haired man stepped forward, looking smug. The new guy had that "I'm the boss" vibe that nobody likes. He claimed it was a waste for Hoyoung to have the ball, insisting he just got lucky. Kim Seyoung, a level 4 player with an ego to match, asserted he would have stepped up if he'd noticed sooner. Hoyoung raised an eyebrow at the waste comment. Seyoung, with a smirk, replied that still being level 1 either made him weak or a coward who ran away. He suggested Hoyoung hand over the ball for the sake of mankind, which sounded like a great slogan for a villain in a superhero movie. Hoyoung, gripping the ball tightly, felt a surge of defiance. Breaking the ball in front of Seyoung, he declared that yielding wasn't his thing, earning himself a stat point and leaving Seyoung fuming. Seyoung accused him of greed and trying to save face, but Hoyoung, trying to keep calm, thought from experience that the wisest thing to do was to avoid people like him. Yet he wondered how long he could maintain this approach. An announcement interrupted their showdown, stating that their starting gold would be distributed. It explained that gold could be used in the shop, with additional gold based on monsters hunted during the tutorial. Kim Seyoung, not missing a chance to be smug, sneered at Hoyoung, telling him to consider himself lucky. The announcement continued, revealing the highest starting gold was 7,400. Shockwaves rippled through the crowd. Seyoung cursed his measly 1,300 gold, while another level 4 player, Kim Junsong, marveled at the top player's fortune, having earned 1,500 gold. Hoyoung, holding a hefty 7,400 gold, thought back to the grueling effort it took to kill those raccoons, realizing he was the top player, but he kept that little nugget of info to himself. No need to stir the pot further. A window popped up, announcing the opening of the shop. Hoyoung weighed his options. Gold could be used to buy items, level up skills, or increase stats. He methodically spent his gold, raising his strength, stamina, and agility, bringing all his stats to 20 and leaving himself with 4,600 gold. Nearby, Seyoung's shouts about the expense of leveling up skills caught his attention. With a smirk, he decided to level up basic swordsmanship for 1,500 gold, and bought some new clothes to replace his tattered gym uniform. At least he could look the part while swinging his sword around. As he was admiring his new look, someone called his name. He turned to see level 3 Yisel asking for advice. This was unexpected. Why was she asking a level 1 player for tips? She smiled warmly, expressing her admiration for his bravery. He peeked at her profile, noting her stats and gold. She was a class healer with a level 1 healing hand skill. To test her honesty, he asked how much gold she had. She replied 800 without hesitation. Curious, he asked if she enjoyed exercising. She admitted she didn't mind walking, leading him to guess her stamina stat was low. He suggested she invest in it, and she agreed, thanking him sincerely. Suddenly, an announcement blared, stating the first floor mission would commence soon. It instructed them to form 3-man parties and warned that incomplete parties would be filled randomly. Panic spread through the crowd like wildfire. Hoyoung had expected group missions but was caught off guard by how soon it was happening. Kim Junsong suggested they reveal their levels for better team formation, and the players quickly started grouping up. Yizil asked Hoyoung to join forces, and he agreed. A healer was a valuable ally after all. However, despite having a healer on his side, other players steered clear of joining his party, citing flimsy excuses. A level 1 combat swordsman wasn't exactly an attractive option. Yizil, looking concerned, asked what they should do. Hoyoung noticed the level 4 players comfortably settled in their parties and glanced at the remaining players. Just then, the announcement stated that time was up and incomplete parties would be filled randomly. With no time to spare, the mission began, and they were transported to a dense forest. Hoyoung and Yisel found themselves stuck with none other than Seyoung, who cursed his rotten luck loudly. Facing Seyoung's glare, Hoyoung wondered if they could find a way to work together. No matter how much they disliked each other, survival was the priority. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. They had to make it work one way or another. The status window pops up with a mission for our trio. Take out the Kobold tribe in under 12 hours. No pressure, right? From their hiding spot behind some trees, they scope out the tribe's area. Kim Seyoung, ever the confident one, is ready to handle this himself and tells our boy Lee Hoyoung to stay out of the way, like that's gonna go smoothly. Our MC tries to keep the peace, reminding him it's a team mission, but this just ticks Seyoung off. He accuses Hoyoung of riding his coattails and being a backseat driver. Hoyoung sighs, thinking it's best not to argue with Mr. Hothead, and agrees to let him take the lead for now. Meanwhile, Cha Yizil is tagging along quietly, already worried about how well this so-called team will work together. She's got a point. As they start moving, Seyoung is on a roll, complaining about the bugs swarming around. He's acting like it's the first time he's ever been outside. Hoyoung, on the other hand, is trying to keep his cool and thinks they need to get this mission done without causing more drama. He spots some purple fruits on the trees and starts to think, but before he can piece it together, Yizil jumps in, asking if the kobold monster must be strong. He tells her there's a chance it's stronger than a one-horned raccoon, but since they're still level 1, they should be able to handle it. Of course, a reminder to stay on guard in the Tower of the End is always good advice. Yizil nods, trying to take it all in. Then, bam, out of nowhere, a beastly creature with massive claws, a bulky body, and legs that look like they could kick a boulder into orbit appears. Hoyoung's heart starts doing a drum solo in his chest as he takes in the sight of this level 5 kobold. It's way bigger and scarier than any one-horned raccoon they've come across. The kobold lets out a growl, and they quickly hide behind the trees. Yizil, clearly freaked out, asks what they should do, noting that this monster looks like it's been hitting the gym way more than any of them. Hoyoung agrees and suggests they scout around to see if there are more kobolds. But of course, Kim Seyoung has other ideas. He steps up, all bravado, accusing them of hiding like cowards. This guy really knows how to read a room, doesn't he? Without warning, Seyoung leaps at the kobold, landing right on top of it and starts throwing punches, loudly proclaiming that it's just a level 5. Hoyoung and Yizil watch in stunned silence as Seyoung, grinning like a maniac, goes to town on the kobold. The monster glares at Seyoung, taking the hits, but Seyoung keeps on pummeling it, taunting it like he's the main act at a circus. Hoyoung can't believe the nerve of this guy. Yizil joins the fight, using her healing powers to support Seyoung, who's clearly enjoying himself. Hoyoung checks their surroundings and, feeling slightly relieved, notes that there are no other kobolds around. He watches Seyoung's strength at 24, while the kobold's HP slowly ticks down from 92%. Okay, credit where it's due. Seyoung's living up to his level, but something doesn't add up. Hoyoung wonders why the damage is so low compared to Seyoung's strength. There has to be another factor here. Suddenly, a status window pops up with a handy guide that says kobolds are passive monsters and won't attack unless provoked. Well, there's a plot twist for you. Seyoung basically just punched the quiet kid in class, but our MC decides to roll with it, figuring they need to capture a few kobolds for research anyway. He closes the status window, only to spot something surprising. Seyoung's still going at it, using his level 1 stone fist, shouting for the kobold to die already. But then the kobold dodges, and Seyoung's fist goes right into a tree, snapping it like a toothpick. The tree falls and hits another kobold. Now this one's a level 6 and it's not looking happy. Seyoung, who was so confident a second ago, suddenly looks like he's bitten off more than he can chew. Both kobolds charge at him. He curses, realizing he might be in deep trouble. Looking around for Hoyoung, he finds that our MC has vanished. Classic move, right? He grumbles to himself, assuming Hoyoung ran off. Meanwhile, the kobolds are roaring, ready to pummel Seyoung. But just then, Yizil steps in, attacking one of the kobolds from behind. Unfortunately, she trips over a rock and faceplants on the ground. Talk about timing. She tries to get up but finds herself staring at a kobold about to attack. Out of nowhere, a sword flies through the air, stabbing a fruit. Hoyoung, in his level 1 basic swordsmanship glory, jumps into the fray. The fruit pulp splatters on the kobold, and it freezes up, letting out a groan as it dies. A status window pops up in front of Hoyoung, showing he has eliminated the level 6 kobold. Seyoung, never one to miss an insult, calls him a loser, but Yizil looks at him with relief, tears in her eyes. Hoyoung takes a moment to reflect. He'd noticed the bugs eating all the other fruits but avoiding these specific ones, and it made him curious. Thanks to the guy's info, he had summoned a poison apple from his inventory. Knowing that kobolds are weak to poison, he holds up the apple, smiling like he just found the cheat code to this level 1 mission. Seyoung, still struggling with the level 5 kobold, watches as Hoyoung helps Yizil to her feet. He asks if she's okay, and she thanks him, noting how close it was with the extra kobold being drawn in by the aggro. Hoyoung admits it could have been dangerous if he had been a bit later. Cha Yizil agrees, thanking him for his help, and he replies he's just glad she's safe. When she asks where he had been, Hoyoung starts to explain, but Sejong cuts him off, accusing him of being a freeloader. This guy just doesn't quit. He goes on about how Hoyoung only jumped in at the last second to steal the kill and calls him an unethical leech. Our MC stands there, speechless, wondering what kind of logic this guy is using. Sejong stomps away, muttering about how he's the bigger person because of his higher level. Hoyoung sighs, realizing that Sejong's inability to understand the situation will only make things tougher. As the sun sets, they arrive at the Kobold village. Kim Sejong, the self-proclaimed punching champion, struggling to fight the kobolds. Meanwhile, Yizil and Hoyoung are also fighting off kobolds using the poison fruit, though their efforts look like a sideshow compared to Sejong's rampage. Watching them, Sejong starts cursing inwardly, wondering how they're managing to finish off the kobolds so easily. Really, bro? Can't you see them using the poisonous fruits? Then, out of nowhere, a kobold lands a punch on him. More join in, and suddenly he's surrounded and getting the stuffing beaten out of him. In pain, he desperately wishes for someone to swoop in and save him. As if on cue, the kobolds suddenly burst apart, and there stands Hoyoung, sword in hand. He casually tells Sejong he took over the fight for a bit and asks how the ride was. Sejong, his eyes welling up with tears, suddenly calls him big brother. Both Hoyoung and Yizil stare at him, utterly shocked by this sudden change of heart. And just like that, a status window pops up, indicating they have cleared the mission. The three of them return to the lobby, an awkward silence hanging in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Kim Sejong, looking like he just got caught in an embarrassing dream, can't shake off the memory of what he did. Imagine bowing down to Lee Hoyoung like he was some kind of noble lord pledging allegiance, and even addressing some low-level rookie as sir. Cringe fest, right? As they each experience the sweet buzz of leveling up, Chai Yizil cheerfully congratulates Lee Hoyoung, who responds with a humble smile that almost says, ah, shucks, it was nothing. Meanwhile, Sejong, holding back the urge to explode, silently swears he'll serve only his boss. He's on the edge, knowing if word of this humiliation gets out, he's done for. But hey, he's a man of his word, and there's no taking it back now. Lee Hoyoung, seeing Sejong's face contorted in frustration, wonders if the guy's just holding in a bad case of stomach cramps. Chai Yizil, scanning the empty lobby, guesses they're the first ones back and asks if they were the quickest. Hoyoung nods, saying they got lucky by figuring out the kobold's weakness. Sejong, putting two and two together, realizes they actually placed first. Yizil, practically bouncing with excitement, yells that it wasn't just luck, it was Hoyoung's sharp eyes. Without him spotting the opportunity to use poison, they'd still be bashing their heads against a wall. Hoyoung laughs it off, claiming her support was crucial, all while secretly thinking, I'm a total fraud. As other parties trickle back in, Lee Hoyoung notices Kim Junsong and Seo Juno's group. They probably found the poisonous apples too, he muses, hoping the rest of the teams make it out alive. Their thoughts get interrupted by a sudden commotion as another party limps in, but only two members make it. Chai Yizil's face falls as she asks about the third person, but the answer comes through choke sobs. Just the two of them survived. The announcement blares that the first level mission has ended for all parties, and they repeat the message like a broken record. Yizil tries to argue with the system, shouting that someone's still missing, but the mechanical voice drones on. 6 parties returned, 8 players failed. Lee Hoyoung, already expecting a grim outcome, feels his heart sink further. 8 dead, just like that. He pictures a field of skulls around him, contemplating how many more will fall before they reach the top. Then the announcement shifts gears, stating that they're calculating the mission results for the survivors. The party that completed the level first gets 1,000 gold each. Yizil and Sejong beam at their status screens, confirming their first place victory. Hoyoung glances at his profile, noticing his 2,000 gold for both bonuses. It's less than what he got during the tutorial, but hey, gold's like a survival insurance policy. Gotta save up. Just as he's enjoying the moment, someone shouts, demanding to know which party claimed first place. With everyone staring daggers at him, Hoyoung realizes he can't dodge this one. Before he can open his mouth, Sejong bursts out, boasting that it was them, calling everyone else weaklings. Hoyoung side-eyes him, thinking the guy's conveniently forgotten about being pounded by those kobolds. The atmosphere is tense, but Sejong's bravado loosens it a bit. The crowd's mood, however, sours quickly as a woman snorts that for someone who took first place, his level is a measly 2. A man chimes in, pointing out he got 2,000 gold without lifting a finger. Another voice mocks his scaredy cat performance, and yet another asks if he doesn't feel the least bit ashamed. Hoyoung sighs internally. He thought the tension was easing up. Guess not. Yizil tries to defend him, but he gently stops her, knowing it's pointless. They're not going to listen. He'll have to prove them wrong. Suddenly, Kim Junsong's voice cuts through the chaos, urging everyone to focus on surviving instead of arguing. His profile shows up, revealing his level 8 status as an archer, one of the highest in the area. Seo Juno backs him up, reminding them they need to push forward for the sake of the fallen. His profile reveals him as a combat swordsman also at level 8. Their words seem to rally the crowd, and soon, more people are shouting encouragement, trying to pull themselves together. Then, without warning, the blue flame on the torch sputters out, replaced by an intense red blaze, which flares up throughout the area, accompanied by an ominous announcement. People panic, the color change signifying something they'd rather not know. The voice announces that the survival rate for Region C, 2567, is below average and a penalty mission is now in effect. Someone shouts, asking what the heck a penalty mission is. The voice clarifies, it's a death mission, and everyone must vote for one player to take it on. Time is set at 5 minutes, and chaos ensues. The announcement mentions that if they don't vote, they'll automatically vote for themselves. The clock starts ticking, and the grim realization sinks in they have to choose someone to die. Amid the chaos, Yizil suggests if they all vote for themselves, no one has to do the mission. Someone agrees, but Lee Jichil points out the bitter truth. They could all end up doing it. Yizil's argument falls flat, and the seconds keep ticking away. With over a minute left, a woman points at Hoyoung, naming him as her vote. Others join in, and soon, Hoyoung's name tag is littered with names. Hoyoung knows why. He's the weakest, after all. Society's idea of protecting the weak, long gone. Yizil's voice cracks as she pleads for mercy, but the crowd's too desperate to care. A man shouts back that he's got no choice. He doesn't want to die either. A woman cynically adds that Hoyoung would have died anyway, being so low level. Masks drop, true colors show. With a second to spare, even Sejong tosses a vote his way, his sorry ringing hollow. The announcement declares the votes are in, and a portal for the death mission materializes. The crowd gasps, reality setting in. Yizil's eyes well up as she calls out for Hoyoung, but Sejong, now laughing, seems relieved, thinking his problem solved if Hoyoung's out of the picture. Hoyoung watches the portal, thinking the sacrificial lamb's been chosen. As he steps towards it, leaving behind faces twisted with guilt and relief, a notification catches his eye. Participation in the death mission is recommended, high chance of success, and a juicy reward awaits. With a determined grin, he strides into the portal, ready to face whatever's on the other side. As the candidates stand around anxiously, Kim Junsong steps up to Kim Sejong and Chai Yizil, concern etched on his face. He remarks, with a hint of sadness, that even though they didn't spend much time together, they've been each other's support, and it feels bitter to part ways like this. Sejong, voice tinged with irritation, shrugs it off, saying it's not bitter at all, just karma playing out. Junsong looks puzzled, asking what Sejong means by that. Sejong snaps, if you just take a look at Lee Hoyoung's level, it's obvious he was freeloading while I carried the entire group. Chai Yizil, eyes glistening with unshed tears, fires back that Hoyoung's abilities were what got them through the ordeal. Sejong, his voice rising, dismisses her words, insisting Hoyoung was merely lucky, landing finishing blows on enemies already on their last legs. Yizil, indignant, asks if Sejong has conveniently forgotten that Hoyoung saved his life when he was at death's door. Sejong falls silent, anger bubbling up as he replays the scenes with Hoyoung and the kobolds. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind. Could Hoyoung have some secret skill to disguise his true level? Junsong, sensing the tension escalating, interjects, saying he truly hopes Hoyoung is as capable as Yizil believes because that might be his only shot at surviving. Yizil, wiping her tears and thinking back to Hoyoung's confident vow to prove himself, steels herself and declares that she knows he'll return. Junsong, nodding with a gentle smile, expresses his agreement, clinging to that sliver of hope. Meanwhile, in the eerie depths of the Kobold tribe's territory, Lee Hoyoung surveys the familiar creatures lurking around. The atmosphere is thick with tension, but the guide's status window fills him with confidence. He muses that he was almost ready to vote himself off the island if things got dire. but now it's clear he's in control. Recalling Kim Se-young's sneering face, Ho Young's grip on his sword tightens, ready to settle the score once and for all. Suddenly, a system notification rings out, announcing the return of the kobold's hunting party. Ho Young's eyes narrow as he spots the enraged kobold stalking toward him, signaling the start of his death mission. Eliminate the chieftain and the frenzied hunting group. As the level 12 kobold chieftain growls menacingly, Ho Young's pulse quickens with adrenaline. The guide's status window flashes. Like the other kobolds, the chieftain is highly susceptible to poison. Ho Young coats his sword with poison apple pulp, knowing that a level 12 boss monster and its enraged minions would be a death sentence for anyone else. The chieftain lunges, swinging its massive spear, but Ho Young deftly sidesteps, letting the weapon crash into the ground. Fueled by a newfound confidence, he dispatches the lesser kobolds one by one with his level 2 swordsmanship, determined to claim victory. As the last of them falls, he turns to face the chieftain, taunting it for the final battle. His first strike misses as the chieftain nimbly dodges, making Ho Young begrudgingly respect its skill, definitely worthy of a boss fight. But just as suddenly, the chieftain turns tail and runs, leaving Ho Young in shock. Frustrated and refusing to let it escape, he chases after it, managing to land a few hits from behind, watching its HP drop. This feels almost too easy. Just as he's about to finish the job, his sword unexpectedly got stuck in the chieftain's hide. Glancing up, he sees a bright red full moon casting an eerie light over the scene. The chieftain's eyes glow crimson, and with a deafening roar, it slashed its spear into Ho Young's shoulder, drawing a spray of blood. Back in the lobby, Kim Se-young scoffs, saying there's no use fretting over someone who's probably dead by now. He declares that from now on, he'll take charge and carry the team to the top. Chai Yiziel, still holding on to hope, prays quietly for Ho Young's safety. Se-young sneers at her, mocking her for wasting prayers on someone who's already a goner. She snaps back, saying that even in this hellhole, a little decency wouldn't kill him. Se-young rolls his eyes, insisting he hasn't said anything out of line. Just then, someone shouts, pointing toward the portal. The group turns as one, eyes widening in disbelief as Lee Ho Young emerges. A system announcement proclaiming that the player who participated in the death mission has returned alive. Ho Young, wearing a faint smile, confirms his triumphant return. Reflecting on the guide's warning about the chieftain's strength under the red moon, Ho Young replays the moment when his shoulder was slashed open. With his HP dangerously low, he had leaned against a tree, desperately trying to stanch the bleeding. When the chieftain charged again, its own HP barely hanging on, Ho Young dodged at the last moment, letting the chieftain's spear smash into the tree trunk. That's when it hit him. While a sword might struggle against a wall, a carefully driven nail could pierce right through, pouring every ounce of his strength and the chieftain's own momentum into one decisive thrust. Ho Young drove his blade into the chieftain's heart, delivering a fatal blow. A system message popped up, confirming that stabbing had been added to his swordsmanship skills. He had cleared the death mission. Back in the tower, Chai Yiziel races toward Ho Young, arms outstretched, shouting that she knew he'd make it back. Just as she's about to embrace him, she's abruptly shoved aside. Dazed, she looks up to see Kim Se-young gripping Ho Young in a tight bear hug, exuberantly declaring that he knew Ho Young would return and calling him big brother, like they've been best friends all along. Typical Se-young, always quick to jump on the winning side. Kim Se-young clings tightly to Lee Ho Young, shouting with wild excitement, I knew you'd make it, big bro. A measly death mission could never take down the strongest guy in the universe. His laughter echoes as he boasts about Ho Young's invincibility. Lee Ho Young, his patience hanging by a thread, clenches his fist, resisting the overwhelming urge to punch Se-young's teeth in. Their reunion is interrupted by Lee Byung-yeol, who raises an eyebrow, his tone skeptical. Did you really clear the death mission? He adds that he's relieved Ho Young made it back, but if he completed the mission, he should have gained a hefty chunk of experience points. Yet Ho Young's level is still the same. The murmurs around them grow louder as the other candidates exchange glances, noting that Ho Young is still at level 2. Some speculate if it's like the rabbit mod, implying Ho Young's achievement might be meaningless. Hearing their whispers, Ho Young's chest tightens. He thinks he's grown numb to it, but the world never misses a chance to push the weak further down. A bitter memory resurfaces, his first academic assessment as a child. He remembers kids whispering behind his back, one girl marveling at how he topped the midterm, while a boy accused him of cheating, sneering at how a pathetic orphan could ace exams without private tutoring. They couldn't stand to see a worm like him rise, so they wanted to crush him back into the dirt. And here he is again, surrounded by a mob ready to tear him down. Someone suggests that maybe Ho Young just hid somewhere during the mission, biding his time. Another agrees, saying it's plausible because at his level, he couldn't have done much besides cower in a corner. Ho Young's grip tightens around his sword, his knuckles turning white. He already knows people like this don't change their minds easily, but right now he needs to show them something undeniable. Before he can respond, Chai Yiziel's voice cuts through the chatter. Enough. Why do you keep doubting him? Her tone is firm, eyes blazing with anger. She points out that Ho Young has already proven himself by surviving the death mission. Ho Young turns to her, heartened by her unwavering support. Se-young, never one to miss a moment, jumps in, backing Yiziel up and calling her big sis. He shouts, you guys must be out of your minds. Instead of throwing a party to celebrate my big bro's glorious return, you're ruining the mood? Shame on you. Ho Young glances at Se-young, who's rambling on, thinking he sounds like the biggest nut job here. But oddly enough, Ho Young feels a small sense of reassurance. He knows if they want to survive the tower, he needs everyone on the same page. To achieve that, he must give them something to believe in. He steps forward, presenting the sword now named Indomitable Sword. Its rare rank and plus 15% attack power leave the crowd stunned. Lee Byung-yeol's eyes widen, exclaiming that such a high attack boost is practically a cheat code. A woman checks her own weapon, a dull, worn sword, and mutters that no special information appears for it. Kim Junsong, eyes sparkling, praises Ho Young for holding onto the poison apple, calling him truly extraordinary, just as Chai Yiziel had said. Yiziel claps for him, but Ho Young, modest as ever, insists it was just luck. Junsong, however, points out that getting a reward like this is more valuable than experience points for their survival. Ho Young's expression hardens. Survival, huh? You mean, after you all almost sent me to my death? A heavy silence falls, everyone at a loss for words. Seo Juno steps forward, looking utterly ashamed. He admits Ho Young is right, head bowed, tears streaming down his face. He confesses that he justified voting for Ho Young by telling himself it was unavoidable, but deep down, he knows it was pure selfishness. He was only relieved it wasn't him facing death. Juno bows deeply, apologizing through choked sobs, saying he's truly glad Ho Young made it back alive. Ho Young and the others watch in silence. A woman with a carefree attitude breaks the silence. Come on, why the drama? Someone had to go, and Ho Young came back with a rare item. It's all good, right? Seo Juno's head snaps up, glaring at her. How can you say that, Seo Eunjin? Don't you feel even a shred of guilt? Eunjin shrugs, cool as ever, and counters. Weren't you the first to vote for him? Ho Young raises a hand, stopping Juno from responding. He explains that he didn't bring this up to blame anyone but to prevent it from happening again. He points out that they must have realized during the death mission voting, the tower is trying to tear them apart, sowing distrust and conflict. His survival proves they can defy its expectations. Kim Junsong, looking inspired, asks Ho Young if he has a plan for what's next. Ho Young nods. We'll find a way for the most people to survive and keep climbing the tower. Step by step, we'll reach the top and reclaim our lives. His words resonate, a spark of hope igniting in the candidates. Chai Yiziel cheers, saying they'll all have to join hands to make it happen. Ho Young agrees, and Seo Juno, tears still glistening, smiles, thinking Ho Young is truly a generous man, far above petty concerns like level or status. Suddenly, a booming voice interrupts their resolve. How touching. But isn't this unfortunate? It's Kum, grinning mischievously as it enters. It announces that the next mission is a survival game. People groan and protest, asking why it's back again and if they'll get stat points this time too. Ho Young, a chill running down his spine, cautiously asks what a survival mission means. Kum chuckles, calling him sharp, and explains that the level 2 mission will be a battle royale, among the 15 players here. The candidates are stunned into silence as Kumkum elaborates. There will be 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, 32 fighters in total. To clear the mission, they must kill the doppelgangers who have the same stats and memories as the players. The catch? There's no reward for killing a doppelganger, but taking out another player will net stat points and gold. The mission is a golden opportunity for those willing to betray. Chaos erupts as people shout accusations and fears. Kumkum twists its finger with a malicious grin, adding that every 30 minutes without a kill, everyone will be summoned to face a massive disaster in the lobby. As it speaks, a purple light flashes, and panic spreads. A clawed hand emerges from the lightning. Someone screams that something's coming through. Lee Hoyoung's legs lock as he stares at the giant. It's level unreadable. Seo Juno shouts at him to move, but Hoyoung's mind races, thinking this is exactly what Kumkum wants. To pit them against a monstrosity that's way out of their league. A thunderous explosion rips through the air, sending everyone sprawling to the ground. Lee Hoyoung's gaze locks onto the towering behemoth before him, and he can't help but think, this is a disaster. A man nearby, shaking like a leaf, mutters in disbelief. Is this even real? How the hell are we supposed to fight that when we barely survived the first floor? A woman, her face ghostly pale, pleads desperately. Please, someone help us. I don't want to die here. As the chaos unfolds, Lee Hoyoung observes the sheer panic gripping everyone around him. The monster lets out an ear-splitting roar, its colossal fist swinging down toward a man frozen in terror. Without hesitating, Lee Hoyoung rushes forward, grabbing the man and yanking him out of the monster's path. The man, gasping in relief, thanks him profusely, but Hoyoung, still dazed, can't help but wonder. We haven't even started the second floor mission yet. What is this thing doing here? Kumkum's voice drips with mock sympathy. Oh, how terrifying. It quips, feigning concern. Hoyoung recalls Kumkum's earlier warning. If no one dies every 30 minutes, they'd be summoned to face a disaster. He speculates that this might just be a spectacle, a way to scare them into taking the mission seriously. If that's the case, the monster isn't truly here to kill them, right? Kim Junsong and Kim Seong engage the beast with everything they've got, but their attacks bounce off its thick hide. Junsong, panting and frustrated, shouts, why isn't this working? I've shot so many arrows, and it's like they're nothing. Seong, equally exasperated, swears under his breath, his sword clanging uselessly against the creature's leg. Watching their futile struggle, Lee Hoyoung grits his teeth. No, this doesn't seem like just a scare tactic anymore. Is this thing actually trying to kill us? His thoughts are interrupted by Cha Yiziel's strained voice. While healing the injured, she cries out, I'm out of mana. I can't keep this up. Hoyoung surveys the scene. No one's dead yet, but it's only a matter of time. He knows they're running out of options. A man shouts a warning as the monster rears back for another devastating blow. Lee Hoyoung steps forward, commanding everyone to fall back. There's no time to hesitate, he tells himself. With a determined resolve, he charges forward, his mind racing. Seo Juno yells at him to retreat, but Hoyoung's focus is unshakable. If I can't stop this thing, everyone will die. He assesses the synergy between his indomitable sword and his level 8 basic swordsmanship. It's got to work. It has to. As he prepares to strike, the monster suddenly disintegrates into the wind, vanishing without a trace. For a moment, everyone is stunned into silence, staring in disbelief. Then, cheers erupt, and they begin chanting his name. Lee Hoyoung, still gripping his sword, blinks in confusion, marveling at its power. Is it really this strong? He's never experienced anything like this before. But before he can process it further, a status window pops up, notifying him that he'll be in an exhausted state for 3 minutes due to overexertion. He collapses to the ground, groaning, I'm doomed. As the crowd's cheers fade around him, minutes later, Lee Hoyoung comes to, surrounded by worried faces. The status window indicates his exhaustion has lifted. He hears Cha Yiziel and Kim Junsong asking if he's okay, while Seo Juno, eyes shining with admiration, praises his humility and strength, even calling his fainting a perfect exit. Hoyoung, struggling to stand, asks, what happened to the huge disaster? Seo Juno begins to explain, but Kumkum interrupts, smirking. Oh, don't worry, the monster's been sent back. It was just a little preview to get you all in the right mood. Hoyoung, still reeling, realizes it was just a test. Kumkum adds with a mischievous grin, not very exciting though, was it? You were all so chummy despite nearly getting crushed. Remember, a kill has to happen every 30 minutes. And I mean any kill. The ones standing next to you, they might just be the ones to stab you in the back. A cold silence settles over the crowd as the implications sink in. Kumkum, its message delivered, vanishes, leaving them in tense silence. Grinding his teeth, Lee Hoyoung wonders, is there no way out of this nightmare? The blue light flickers ominously, and Seo Juno, his voice grim, says, if we can't identify the doppelgangers, we'll have no choice but to kill each other. Lee Jichil, his voice urgent, demands they find a solution fast. Someone suggests marking everyone since the doppelgangers share their memories, but another questions how they'll know who's real and who's not. Lee Hoyoung steps forward, drawing everyone's attention. I have an idea, he announces. Cha Yiziel, intrigued, asks what he has in mind. During the mission, only I will move. The rest of you should gather at the highest point on the second floor. If anyone else makes a move, assume they're a doppelganger and deal with them accordingly. On Secheng, a towering figure at level 9 and a former Special Forces member, crosses his arms, skeptical. And why should we follow your plan? A woman, equally doubtful, scoffs. You're barely level 2. Why should we trust you? Lee Hoyoung meets their eyes with steely determination. Because Kumkum said there's no reward for killing a doppelganger, but killing another player nets you stat points and gold. The tower wants us to turn on each other, not the doppelgangers. I won't play their game. This is the best way to ensure we don't fall into their trap. Kim Junsong, after a moment's thought, nods. It makes sense. We can minimize casualties this way. He then asks, Hoyoung, do you have a way to identify the doppelgangers? Hoyoung's lips curl into a confident grin. Of course I do. The forest looms around them as the status window blinks, indicating the start of the second floor mission. They have 30 minutes to kill someone. 16 players and 16 doppelgangers. Kim Seong, grumbling about the risky plan, hides behind a tree. A voice calls out to him, and he freezes, noting that his large frame isn't exactly stealthy. But relief washes over him as he recognizes Lee Hoyoung. Big bro, I thought you were a doppelganger. With a swift, fluid motion, he slashes through Seong, splitting him in two. What just happened? Let rewind a bit. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Lee Hoyoung took it upon himself to handle all the killings. The status window flashed a grim message. The second floor mission had begun, and each player had to kill at least one person within 30 minutes. With 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, Hoyoung's focus locked onto his guide status window, which revealed a critical detail. The first player to reach a certain sensitivity level would obtain the impeccable sense of skill, an ability crucial for detecting doppelgangers. Hoyoung felt a surge of both pride and anxiety, knowing that his earlier boast about distinguishing doppelgangers might come true with this skill. As he watched his stats fluctuate, uncertainty gnawed at him, wondering how many points he would need to invest. Then, abruptly, another status window appeared, congratulating him on being the first to reach a sensitivity stat of 50, awarding him the coveted skill. The impeccable senses ability heightened his perception, enabling him to gather detailed information about anyone within a specific radius. He stared at his hand, now emanating a soft blue glow, marveling at the newfound clarity with which he perceived the world. It was as if everything had gained a sharper, more vibrant hue. A faint mumbling caught his attention, his enhanced senses instantly zeroing in on the source. Recognizing the voice, Hoyoung realized it was Kim Seong, grumbling about his earlier suggestion to gather at the top of the floor without taking action, calling it reckless and lamenting the exhausting climb. Impressed by the acuity of his hearing, Hoyoung pinpointed Seong's location, 500 meters away. However, the next moment, a foul, unnatural stench assaulted his senses, revealing that the figure wasn't Seong but a doppelganger. A status window promptly confirmed the kill, updating the count to 16 players and 15 doppelgangers. The mission still demanding another kill within 30 minutes. Hoyoung felt a pang of guilt, knowing the doppelganger had perfectly mimicked Seong until its death. He hoped the others were adhering to his plan, remembering the initial agreement, bolstered by Kim Junsong's support. Though real-time events remained unpredictable, Hoyoung's sense of triumph was short-lived. His heart sank as he noticed that another player had fallen, reducing the numbers to 15 players and 15 doppelgangers. Panic spurred him into action as he scanned his surroundings, his heightened senses picking up on faint sounds that led him to a gruesome scene. Go Young was doppelganger, level 5, had just murdered another player. Ho Young swiftly dispatched the doppelganger, the status window reflecting 14 players and 13 doppelgangers. Relief washed over him for stopping it before further damage could be done. But as he inspected the fallen level 4 Lee Byung-kyeol, confusion set in. The wound was inconsistent with Go Young's weapon. It was an arrow wound. His gaze darted around, and his eyes caught sight of Kim Junsong, bow in hand, ready to attack. Instinctively, Ho Young ducked behind a tree, realizing there might be another culprit at play. When Junsong called out, demanding to know who was there, Ho Young noticed the arrow wound on Junsong's shoulder and considered the possibility that it had been self-inflicted by his doppelganger. Cautiously, he approached, attempting to explain the situation, but Junsong remained wary, keeping his distance. Pointing to the dead doppelganger, Ho Young finally convinced Junsong of his identity. With a grave nod, Junsong warned him about his own doppelganger before collapsing from exhaustion, and Ho Young rushed to his aid. After some time, Ho Young helped Junsong to his feet, and they continued together. Overcome with guilt, Junsong apologized profusely, lamenting that if he hadn't fled, perhaps others might still be alive. The horrifying thought of a malicious doppelganger bearing his likeness and sowing chaos weighed heavily on his conscience. Ho Young, understanding his turmoil, reassured him, insisting that none of them were to blame. They were all trapped in the tower's cruel game, and their only focus should be on surviving. Suddenly, Ho Young's senses flared, alerting him to Chai Yizil and Seo Juno rushing towards them, calling out his name. Yizil, visibly relieved, expressed her concern after hearing about the recent deaths, while Juno, equally distressed, struggled to comprehend how two players could have fallen so quickly. Yizil began to examine Junsong's injuries, offering to heal him, but Ho Young, instinct screaming, stepped in, urging Junsong to stay back. The approaching figures were not their real comrades but doppelgangers. Junsong, still reeling from the shock, watched as Seo Juno's doppelganger launched itself at Ho Young, ranting about an old grudge from a death mission and questioning whether Ho Young still harbored resentment, despite his reputed kindness. Their weapons clashed with a harsh, metallic screech. Junsong, shaking off his stupor, joined the fray, pledging to take on the other doppelganger. Ho Young, bewildered by the brazen assault of these doppelgangers, wondered why they were so bold, especially when one of them held Yizil's memories and should have known of his strength. But there was no time to ponder. Chai Yizil's doppelganger seized the opportunity, lunging at Ho Young from behind. He barely evaded the strike, his body moving with the fluid precision his skill granted him. As both doppelgangers pressed their attack, he expertly maneuvered, dodging and countering each strike with calculated precision. Just as he began to gain the upper hand, an arrow whizzed past his face, narrowly missing him. His gaze snapped toward Kim Junsong, who smirked disdainfully, complaining about a missed opportunity. A few moments before the chaos unfolds, Lee Ho Young is focused on dispatching the doppelgangers of Go Young Woo with surgical precision. Meanwhile, lurking behind a nearby tree, Kim Junsong, a 35-year-old archer who once lived as a fisherman from Wanyang, watches with a sinister grin. He calmly knocks an arrow, indulging in his twisted pastime he calls human fishing. In his excitement, he slips into his old dialect, a reminder of how deeply he relishes these moments of cruelty. As Lee Ho Young senses his presence, Kim taunts him, asking what feelings might be churning inside him: betrayal, futility, or perhaps pure rage. Ho Young, reading the madness in Junsong's eyes, concludes that this man is far more unhinged than he had initially realized. Coolly, he acknowledges that he'd been waiting for Junsong to reveal his true colors. Junsong smirks in response, acting as if Ho Young had expected this betrayal all along. Their history flashes in Ho Young's mind, the time he'd helped Junsong walk and, in doing so, noticed his stats rise unnaturally. It became clear then, Junsong was a ticking time bomb, a predator hiding behind a facade. "You're nothing but a murderous psychopath," Ho Young accuses coldly. With an envious gleam in his eye, Junsong counters with intrigue, "Has the tower blessed you, Ho Young? Or are you just lucky?" Ho Young, growing tired of the small talk, points his glowing blue sword directly at him and demands to know why he's willing to kill. Is gold and stats really worth all this? Or is it something more? Unfazed, Junsong lets out a twisted laugh, explaining, "In this world, killing brings rewards, not penalties. Why wouldn't I do it?" He releases an arrow aimed straight for Ho Young. Ho Young had hoped there would be something more behind Junsong's actions. A reason? A motive. But he realizes with a grim sigh that Junsong is simply a deranged psychopath who has been waiting for this moment all along. As if on cue, the doppelgangers of Chai Yizil and Seo Juno rush towards Ho Young. Dodging Junsong's flurry of arrows, Ho Young parries each attack with precision, but a few still graze his face, drawing blood. Thrown to the ground, Ho Young grits his teeth, understanding that Junsong hasn't revealed all his tricks yet. Surveying the battlefield, he notices the formation of the doppelgangers. Behind him are Seo Juno, renowned for his unmatched close combat prowess, and Chai Yizil, the most skilled healer in the group. Positioned before him is Kim Junsong, a deadly archer with terrifying precision. Together, they form a formidable team, a near impenetrable net that tightens with every second. As Ho Young regains his stance, Junsong taunts, "Catching a big fish takes effort. You know?" He admits he thought Ho Young would be an easy target, but now he's eager to watch him suffer. With a smirk, Junsong commands the doppelgangers to close in as he draws 3 arrows in quick succession. The arrows fly towards Ho Young with deadly intent. Ho Young, however, uses his sharp senses to analyze their coordinated attacks. He examines the stats of both Chai Yizil and Seo Juno, noting their formidable capabilities. Despite their impressive teamwork, Ho Young knows one thing: they cannot match his raw power. Engaging in a fierce battle, he strikes down the doppelgangers one after another. His blade sings as it slices through the air, deflecting arrows and dealing devastating blows. The doppelgangers falter, and soon, their bodies hit the ground. The status window flashes with an update. The number of players has dropped to 14, and the doppelgangers are now down to 11. A reminder flashes: kill at least one person within 30 minutes. Breathing heavily, Ho Young turns his gaze toward Junsong, who now kneels, drenched in sweat and trembling. In a desperate plea, Junsong begs for his life, claiming that greed and a lust for rewards had driven him to insanity. "Give me one chance. Just one chance to make things right," he whimpers. But then, with a sudden burst of manic laughter, Junsong lunges at Ho Young, cursing him to hell. His attack is wild and uncoordinated, driven by pure desperation. Ho Young remains calm, easily deflecting the strike and responding with a swift, fatal blow. As Junsong crumples to the ground, his eyes widen in disbelief. His final thoughts echo the bitter realization: Ho Young is far more than just another victim. He was a force of nature, one that Junsong had grossly underestimated. The status window flashes ominously, updating the count. 13 players left, 11 doppelgangers remaining. And with the chilling reminder, at least one more person must die in the next 30 minutes. Lee Ho Young stands, his sword dripping with blood, trying to reconcile with the reality. He has just killed another human being. His mind races with mixed emotions. Before he can fully process the moment, another status window materializes. This time, the message is unexpected, and it sends a shiver down his spine. The player who took the role of the Star Killer has died. As the words hang in the air, a crimson aura begins to swirl around him, creeping closer. Confusion settles in, but the status window makes it clear: Ho Young now has the opportunity to become the new Star Killer. The offer comes with temptations beyond imagination: boosted stats, doppelganger minions, legendary equipment, and unparalleled skills, all for the price of embracing the bloodthirsty role. A peculiar woman shrouded in the same crimson energy appears before him, her presence cementing the gravity of his decision. As he watches the aura swirl around her, his thoughts turn to the earlier revelation about Kim Junsong. He had somehow controlled doppelgangers, and Ho Young understands now that the Star Killer role is what gave him that power. He considers the staggering benefits, legendary rank items, incredible stat gains, exclusive skills. For a brief moment, the allure tugs at him, but Ho Young knows better. This path isn't for him. Unlike Junsong, he cannot bring himself to become a remorseless killer, even if the rewards are great. The doppelgangers were one thing. He knew they weren't real humans, but more human opponents, more bloodshed just to survive? No. With a resolute shake of his head, he rejects the Star Killer's challenge. Ho Young continues walking, soon rejoining the group. They all seem relieved, though one person stands out, Kim Se-young, his cheerful energy a stark contrast to the dire situation. Big brother, Se-young calls out, his bright eyes lighting up as he waves. For a brief second, Ho-young considers whether being more ruthless might be necessary. He compliments the group for their effort, appreciating their dedication to the plan despite the circumstances. Inside, however, a storm of frustration brews. He knows their situation has grown far more complicated than he anticipated. Just as a man, accompanied by his eerily similar doppelganger, steps forward, the tension heightens. The man looks over at Ho-young, his voice uneasy. What's our next move? Can you even tell the real ones from the fakes? Ho-young affirms he can, but before he can elaborate, a voice cuts through the air. Thanks for sticking to the plan, it says, and Ho-young turns to see his own doppelganger standing there. Oh no, the group collectively holds its breath. The doubt in their eyes is unmistakable. A man speaks up, his voice wavering. How do we know who to trust now? A woman echoes the sentiment, asking if Ho-young had anticipated this twist. He had, at least somewhat, but Junsong's betrayal had thrown everything off. Now, with his own doppelganger in the mix, the situation has become more dangerous. Lee Ji-chul, visibly rattled, presses Ho-young for answers. You said you killed the doppelgangers. Did you? Ho-young knows the truth. 5 doppelgangers have already fallen by his hand. But now, revealing that could expose their identities and possibly himself as a player. Yet, before he can explain, both he and his doppelganger announce the names of the deceased at the same time. The group stands in stunned silence. The simultaneous revelation has only added to the confusion. Sensing an opportunity, the doppelganger smirks and taunts. If you really think you can trust Ho-young, then let me remind you that he couldn't have killed the doppelgangers you trust the most. Kim Se-young and Cha Yizil. His words stir a whirlwind of doubt. As another man accuses Ho-young of manipulating them, a woman agrees, noting how it's the oldest trick in the book. Cha Yizil tries to reason with them, but the seed of distrust has been planted. Then, the doppelganger delivers a critical blow, stating, if what I say is true, then Kim Junsong was the real doppelganger, and the real Junsong has already been killed. The shockwave hits the group hard. Junsong, their leader, their strongest member, gone? It seems impossible. The doppelganger grins, accusing Ho-young of being the fake. The tension escalates as a woman proposes attacking Ho-young to eliminate any remaining doppelgangers, but Kim Se-young protests, pointing out that would make him a fake too. Cha Yizil and Seo Juno urge caution, reminding everyone that acting rashly could spell disaster. But time is running out, and someone warns that the 30-minute timer is ticking down. Ho-young, weighing his options, knows he needs to act fast. He admires the cunning of his doppelganger. It's like praising himself, but he doesn't let that stop him. Then, he steps forward and admits, I killed Kim Junsong. His doppelganger's smirk falters for the first time. Ho-young's voice sharpens. But there's one thing you don't know, something even you couldn't guess. Junsong killed other players. He was a traitor. Ho-young draws his sword. With a decisive strike, he cleaves through Junsong's doppelganger, putting an end to the twisted game once and for all. Kim Junsong's doppelganger lets out a strained, harsh cough, cutting through the tense silence. The group turns toward him, realizing the situation is spiraling out of control. Before anyone can react, Lee Ho-young's own doppelganger explodes in fury, shouting at Ho-young, accusing him of recklessness. What do you think you're doing? The doppelganger roars, his eyes burning with rage. Amidst the chaos, Seo Juno's voice rises above the rest, calm but laced with curiosity. He asks Ho-young the question now on everyone's mind. Is Kim Junsong really a traitor? His suspicion runs deep, and he quickly tries to piece together the puzzle. If the real Ho-young just attacked Junsong, that means the truth is far more complicated than it seems. Seo Juno's logic starts to crystallize. If the real Lee Ho-young kills a doppelganger, their true nature is revealed. That would prove his authenticity once and for all. But now, Ho-young is saying Kim Junsong was a traitor. What could that possibly mean? Did Junsong kill humans? Seo Juno presses. Ho-young, his face somber and serious, nods and says, yes, Junsong was no hero. He was a demon wearing the mask of a good person, hiding his true nature, waiting for the right moment to strike. The revelation shakes the group. Kim Eun-jin, her eyes welling with tears, can barely contain her disbelief. Her voice cracks as she cries out, that's impossible. He saved me from a kobold. He asked if I was alright. He was kind. The weight of the accusation overwhelms her, and before anyone can stop her, she rushes at Ho-young, ready to attack out of pure emotion. But before she can close the distance, an arrow flies through the air, striking her with deadly precision. Eun-jin gasps, turning slowly to see Kim Junsong's doppelganger standing there, bow in hand, a wicked grin plastered on his face. A cold, detached status window appears. A player has died. Players, 12. Doppelgangers, 11. The group freezes, stunned. The timer continues ticking, and they now have even less time to kill another person. The twisted grin on Junsong's doppelganger only grows wider, a mocking laugh escaping his lips. The man is reveling in the chaos. Then, another status window flickers into view. A doppelganger has died. Players, 12. Doppelgangers, 10. The tension breaks as On Setching steps forward, his sword still raised, breathing heavily. He's the one who dealt the killing blow. I'm sorry I doubted you, he says, voice strained with regret, speaking directly to Lee Ho-young. Shouts erupt from the group as people scramble to understand what just happened. Realization sets in. The doppelganger is dead, and Lee Ho-young is vindicated. Players begin clamoring for direction, turning to Ho-young in desperation. What now? They plead. Ho-young, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu, allows himself a small smile. This wasn't his first brush with chaos, and it certainly wouldn't be his last. We need to use all the gold we can to increase our stats, he announces with firm resolve. As the group rushes to follow his orders, they use every bit of gold they can, their stats climbing higher with each new piece. With their improved stats, they are more formidable than they've ever been before. However, the tension still lingers. The battle isn't over. Later, as they make their way back to the tower, the atmosphere is heavy with the aftermath of the mission. Lee Ho-young, deep in thought, reflects on their narrow victory. They had barely scraped by, but the players had one critical advantage. The doppelganger stats hadn't changed since they entered the second floor. This one oversight had tipped the balance in favor of the players, but it was still a close call. On Setchang's voice interrupts Ho-young's thoughts. It's a shame, he says, sorrow lacing his tone, that we couldn't save everyone. Ho-young meets his gaze, feeling the weight of the losses just as deeply. We did what we could, he replies quietly. The losses still sting, and the road ahead promises to be even more dangerous. As they continue, Ho-young's mind drifts to other regions, wondering if others are facing similar battles without someone to guide them. His unique ability to read the guide has been their lifeline, and he knows that without it, many others may be struggling to survive. He steels his resolve, promising himself that as long as there are people who believe in him, he'll fight to save as many as he can. On Setchang approaches Ho-young once again, this time with a look of gratitude. Thank you, he says earnestly, for leading us through this. We wouldn't have made it without you. Ho-young humbly deflects the praise, attributing their success to the group's collective efforts. But on Setchang, still feeling the sting of his earlier doubts, bows deeply. I'm sorry for ever doubting you. One by one, others follow suit. The air is filled with apologies and relieved laughter. Kim Se-young, ever the joker, breaks the tension with a hearty laugh. We really dropped the ball not recognizing Ho-young's gigachad energy from the start. Cha Yizil, with a grin, adds, I knew it first. You all were just slow to catch on. Even Seo Juno, who had initially been wary, steps forward with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry too, he says. You've proven yourself over and over. In this moment of healing and camaraderie, On Setchang makes one final request, his voice filled with respect. Please continue to lead us. We need you. Lee Ho-young, momentarily taken aback by the heartfelt request, pauses before allowing a warm smile to spread across his face. After a brief moment of reflection, he nods and says, I will. The status window pops up, calculating gold rewards based on individual contributions, and a wave of excitement sweeps through the group. Lee Ji-chul, practically glowing with joy, can't contain his enthusiasm. We're getting gold too, he exclaims as 700G is added to his profile. A woman nearby shares his excitement, delighted with her 500G reward. Their celebrations, however, are soon overshadowed by Kim Se-young, who practically explodes with glee as he announces to everyone in earshot. I just got 2000G, he beams, practically bursting with pride. Lee Ho-young watches the scene unfold in silence, a bit speechless at Se-young's outburst. He thinks to himself, well, I guess it paid off for everyone since they followed the plan. A small small, satisfied smile forms on his lips as he eyes his own reward, 12,500 G. The smile grows as a new status window catches his attention, stating that because he has acquired more than 10,000 G, his shop rank will now increase. As the new shop window appears before him, Ho-young quickly scans the options and realizes how the system works. If he wants access to rare and powerful items, he needs to keep raising his shop's rank. Without hesitation, he spends 5,000 G to purchase a level up for his basic swordsmanship, pushing it from level 2 to level 3. Reflecting on his earlier battle with the colossal monster, he recalls how he had instinctively used a higher level technique, even though it had drained him completely. That kind of power, for just this much gold? He thinks to himself, feeling like he stumbled upon a real bargain. As Ho-young finishes his shopping and share 1,500 G with Cha Yiziel, panicked, Yiziel turns to him and asks why he's giving her the gold. Ho-young, calm as always, responds, you earned it. When we fought those kobolds and doppelgangers, things would have been much harder without your help. His words are soft, but they hit hard, and she stands a little taller, her eyes bright with new determination. With a firm nod, Yiziel vows to level up her healing hand from level 1 to level 2. At the same time, Kim Se-young receives his own status window, informing him that Ho-young has also shared 200 G with him. Overcome with emotion, calling him big bro, stop being weird and just keep up the good work. Ho-young says, trying to shake off the awkwardness. In truth, Ho-young knows Se-young has potential. He'll be useful if he gets stronger, and it's always better to have competent allies rather than annoyances. Se-young, however, is far from subtle. Your wish is my command from now on, big bro. Just say the word, he declares dramatically. Ho-young, disgusted, thought to test out his newly upgraded level 3 swordsmanship on him. Suddenly, the valley-like area therein fills with new notifications as the status window announces the start of the 3rd floor mission, a siege war. It explains that this will be their first encounter with players from other regions, and their mission is to attack, bring down the castle, and occupy the altar within 24 hours. The penalty for failure remains ominously unknown. A shining purple crystal, labeled as the return crystal, appears in Ho-young's hand. The status window mentions it's a time-limited item, usable only on the 3rd floor. Ho-young examines it carefully as the others receive their own crystals. Lee Ji-cheol, frowning in confusion, voices the question on everyone's mind. Does this mean we have to kill other people? Another player, staring at the crystal in her hand, asks, what's this even for? Ho-young, eyes fixed on the status window in front of him, pieces it all together. This crystal is their failsafe, their means of survival if things go south. Turning to Kim Se-young, he reminds him of his earlier proclamation. You said you'd do anything, right? Se-young gulps nervously. This can't be good. Panting heavily as he climbs up the mountain, Se-young mutters under his breath, Ho-young's really being too much this time. He could have just explained that I wouldn't die for real. The guide window explained that the return crystal will bring them back to the starting point upon death. Now standing before the castle gate, Se-young remembers Ho-young's promise. 100 G if he does reconnaissance. Fired up with determination, he shouts, I'll destroy everything while I'm here. Without hesitation, Se-young charges at the gate, and the status window flickers to indicate that its durability has dropped to 81%. He keeps hitting it, knocking the percentage lower and lower until the gate finally opens. But as soon as he steps inside, another status window flashes. The castle gate will reset in 2 seconds. Se-young, grinning like a madman, declares, no gate can withstand my power. As the gate resets, he spots 2 guards on the castle wall and notices what looks like the altar they need to occupy. His grin widens, and he prepares to charge forward, but he suddenly got hit by something. His nose starts bleeding, and he groans, confused. What the hell was that? His vision started to blur, and he saw a woman holding a gun. Lee Ho-young's voice rings out in disbelief. A gun. Se-young, clutching his fist, yells back, yeah, a magic bullet, and it hurt like hell. Ho-young's mind races. A gun? At this stage? That's insane. Not even on Secheng, whose class is literally soldier, has a gun. The realization hits him like a truck. The Star Killer rewards must have enabled this, and it's going to make this mission way tougher than he anticipated. But before he can say anything else, Cha Yiziel steps forward confidently. Don't worry, she assures him. I've got your back. Her calm demeanor spreads through the group, and even Seo Juno and the others nod in agreement, showing their readiness for the upcoming battle. Ho-young smiles, grateful for their support. Good. Then here's the plan. Under the eerie light of the blue moon, far from their mission, a man prostrates himself on the cold ground, tears falling from his eyes. On his back, a woman sits casually yawning, as if the scene before her is nothing more than a dull formality. The people around her tremble in fear, caught in a nightmare they cannot escape. Our boy Lee Ho-young's newly sharpened senses from the 2nd floor mission kick in as he spots the 2 guards, Lee Daeman and Ju Hongdeek, standing on top of the castle walls. Both are level 8, just as Kim Se-young had described earlier. Se-young, already fed up with seeing them again, hurls insults their way like it's a full-time job. Meanwhile, Cha Yiziel, always the voice of reason, grows concerned, warning Ho-young that if Se-young rushes out there again, the enemy might figure out what the return crystals do. Ho-young, ever the strategist, knows the guards might get suspicious, but he's not too worried. They're more likely to assume it's just some weird ability Se-young picked up, not a crystal. No one really knows what's going on with Se-young half the time anyway. Sensing the rising tension, the guards decide to stop standing around and start firing arrows. Se-young surprised by the sudden barrage, his frustration skyrocketing as if he's questioning all his life choices up to this point. But Ho-young, being the nimble ninja he is, jumps into action, slicing arrows in midair like he's auditioning for an action movie. After landing with style, he uses Se-young's shoulder as a springboard, because why not? And catapults himself to the top of the wall. The guards, in disbelief, probably questioning where they went wrong in life, can only mumble incoherently before they're swiftly dealt with. Ho-young stands victorious, feeling like a total boss, and announces that this is their one shot at victory. Outside the castle gate, Seo Juno's urgency matches his concern for keeping the return crystal's secret intact. Kim Se-young, full of energy and more confidence than necessary, praises Ho-young and rallies everyone for a charge, his excitement palpable. Se-young races towards the castle door like a man on a mission, claiming that he can break the gate with just 5 stone punches. But contrary to his expectations, a magic bullet hit him right in his face, breaking the door in the process. The status window confirming the gate's utter destruction. 0 chance of repair. Cha Yiziel rushes to Se-young, frantically trying to heal him while telling him to hold on like she's in a dramatic medical scene. From his perch atop the wall, Ho-young surveys the chaos below, wondering what in the world just happened. A guard complains nearby, pointing to a woman with a gun, calling her a madwoman, ready to exploit their mistakes. Ho-young checks her profile. Meet Sun Seoyeon, a level 13 star killer and general bad news. Ho-young suspects she might be the one responsible for the massacre on the 2nd floor. As soon as Seoyeon spots Ho-young, she fires a bullet that strikes his shoulder. Ho-young quickly takes cover, drinking a potion like it's an energy drink. He checks the wound and thanks the heavens for the Kalia's leather armor he's smartly equipped, which gives him 50% magic defense. Observing Seoyeon more closely, he deduces that each magic bullet she fires must cost her 10 MP. If she's shopping at the same store as him, there's no way she has mana recovery items yet. Classic early game struggles. He calculates that she has only 13 magic bullets left, so the team needs to move fast toward the altar. In a flashback to earlier, someone had nervously asked how they were supposed to dodge all the bullets and reach the altar. On Secheng, Ever the tactician had suggested they zigzag like pros and use cover. Ho-young had reasoned that Seoyeon's magic bullets, which nearly took out Se-young, must be limited by some energy source. Meanwhile, Se-young had reassured everyone, claiming he was never really that close to death. Sure, buddy. Seo Juno had pressed Ho-young for more details about this energy point, to which Ho-young had responded that it was all about one critical shot. Now, in the present, Seoyeon is firing those precious magic bullets like there's no tomorrow. Cha Yiziel, Ever the healer, is doing everything she can to keep people alive, while Sun Seoyeon kicks aside her own team members like she's had it with their nonsense, ordering them to charge. Ho-young realizes that things are escalating fast. If a full-blown battle breaks out, those magic bullets could wipe out a few of his teammates, and they don't have time to waste. He dodges an attacker, counters with his sword, and spots a bullet coming his way. But in a heroic move, Seo Juno jumps in, blocking the shot just in time. Ho-young, seeing the relentless struggle all around him, grits his teeth. Even though they'll respawn after dying, it doesn't make watching Seoyeon's ruthless killing spree any easier. Sun Seoyeon, smiling like she's having the time of her life, watches them all with cold amusement, fully enjoying the chaos she's created. Our boy, fueled by pure rage, charged toward the altar like a madman, slicing through his enemies like vegetables. His eyes locked onto Sun Seoyeon, and without a second thought, he dashed straight for her, their weapons clashing with a force that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. On the other side, Kim Seong, being his usual over-the-top self, is standing there yelling at some poor guy in front of him, making sure everyone knows just how much trouble they're in. The men, understandably confused by Seoong's wild laughter, don't quite get the severity of the situation. You'd think the whole laughing like a maniac thing would tip them off, but hey, we can't all be geniuses. With his eyes gleaming with determination, Seoong readies his trusty level 2 fist stone and declares, because of course he's got to announce everything, that now that his big bro Lee Hoyoung has reached the altar, they don't need to hold back anymore. And with that, he charges at the enemy like a bulldozer, tossing men aside like they're lightweight action figures. Seriously, those guys didn't stand a chance. Meanwhile, Hoyoung finds himself face to face with Sun Seoyeon, and boy, is it tense. His sword is pointing right at her, while she's got her gun aimed straight back at him. They're having the silent face-off, with Seoyeon wondering how Hoyoung can be so strong at a measly level 2. And Hoyoung? He's casually smirking, just as curious about how she climbed her way to level 13. Neither one seems to have an answer, but before Seoyeon can puzzle over it too much, a bright blue light flashes under Hoyoung's feet. A status window pops up, announcing that Hoyoung's officially claimed the altar. But there's a catch. He needs 2 more people to lock it down for good. Looks like the showdown with Seoyeon is the first step. Not one to wait around. Hoyoung lunges forward, sword slashing through the air, but Seoyeon blocks him with her gun, firing off bullets from every angle. And here's where Hoyoung shows off. He doesn't just dodge the shots, he deflects them, making it look easy. Seoyeon's probably wondering if he's part ninja or something because those reflexes. Now, if you think Hoyoung's skills came out of nowhere, you'd be wrong. His buddy, Seo Juno, is not just a swordsman of legendary skill in their region. He's also a master at table tennis. Yep, ping pong, believe it or not. In pro matches, it's not enough to just see the ball and swing. You've got to predict your opponent's moves based on the smallest of tells like body language or where their eyes are looking. Seo Juno earned the nickname, the genius of prediction, and it's this exact skill that helped him dodge magic bullets like it's nothing. Hoyoung must have picked up a trick or two because he's pressing Seoyeon hard, dodging everything she throws at him. As the rest of the team mops up the remaining players from the other region, Unseching declares they finished things here, and, as expected, Kim Seong pipes up saying they need to hurry before the enemies respawn. Always the hype man, that one. Seoyeon, with a cut on her cheek, wipes away the blood and throws a snide question Hoyoung's way, asking if the return crystal revives them after death. Hoyoung confirms, but not without adding a little flex, saying it's useless for her to know now. Even if she has some hidden ace up her sleeve, Hoyoung believes he's tough enough to handle it. Ready to finish things, he braces himself. But, surprise, Seoyeon's not done. She throws a verbal curveball, asking if Hoyoung really thinks he's already won. That's when he notices something alarming. Her gold is draining fast, and her level 3 firing skill just upgraded to level 4. And now it's Hoyoung's turn to curse under his breath. He readies for the attack, but she's faster than expected. The bullets hit him and his vision goes fuzzy. Just before he goes down, he hears his team shouting his name, rushing towards him. A final status window flashes, announcing that the 3rd floor mission is over. Back at the lobby, everyone's catching their breath, but Kim Seong doesn't seem to be in a celebratory mood. Hoyoung, noticing his buddy sulking, asks what's wrong. Seong, ever the drama king, grumbles about how he did most of the work but got a lousy reward for it. Hoyoung chuckles, thinking back to the fight. He hadn't expected the last-minute flurry of bullets, but somehow he managed to land a strike on Seoyeon at the same time. He also can't shake Seoyeon's final words. She promised to remember his name, and honestly, that's the kind of thing that sticks with you. Despite the victory, just the thought of crossing paths with her again gives him the creeps. But there's no time for a breather. Suddenly, a loud shout catches everyone's attention. They turn to a large window which now displays the defeated group from earlier. The status window warns that the group will soon face a disaster. And sure enough, a monstrous roar echoes through the space. The window explains that players who didn't manage to secure a single kill are now in deep trouble. One of the players from the defeated group cries out for help. Chai Yizil, always the healer at heart, tries to break through the window to assist, but she quickly pulls back when the monster lets out a terrifying growl. They all stand there, watching helplessly as the disaster plays out in front of them. When the chaos finally subsides, the status window confirms that only one player from the C-1427 area survived. Hoyoung immediately realizes that the lone survivor must have snagged at least 1 kill. As they survey the scene, fresh footprints reveal who it is, none other than Sun Seoyeon, because of course it's her. The status window announces that a new group is formed, and as Seoyeon makes her dramatic entrance, the first thing out of her mouth is a sneering comment about how filthy everything is. Hoyoung grits his teeth, muttering under his breath, "Yep, that uneasy feeling from earlier, totally justified." In the midst of a city reduced to rubble, the group faces a harsh new reality. As they survey the destruction, a woman asks if the 4th floor really resembles an abandoned city. Before anyone can respond, the status window flickers to life, delivering an ominous message. In 6 hours, disaster will strike this cursed place. They are tasked with defeating all the monsters in the city and securing an escape portal. The kicker? Only 20 portals will appear, and they have to make sure no one else uses theirs. Not exactly a friendly scavenger hunt. As the countdown begins, one guy is practically buzzing with excitement. Finally, it's a monster hunting mission. After the grueling challenges of the 2nd and 3rd floors, he's thrilled at the idea of facing off against some real monsters. Meanwhile, Lee Byung-kyul, ever the voice of reason, points out that with 20 portals and only 13 of them, there's no need for them to fight among themselves. Kim Seong, hyped up as usual, swears he's going to slay all the monsters and level up like crazy. But Chai Yizil, ever cautious, raises a good point. If they can't let others use their portals, there must be a limit to how many monsters they'll face. Seo Juno agrees, noting that if one person opens multiple portals, others might be left without an escape. He suggests that the extra portals could be a trap laid by the tower itself. Unseching, always the strategist, concludes that no matter how many monsters they face, they should focus on escaping the moment a portal opens. Seo Juno insists everyone agree to stop hunting and leave immediately when a portal appears. A woman nods in agreement, and it seems like the plan is set. Chai Yizil, however, notices Kim Seong's odd expression and asks him about it. Naturally, he snaps back, claiming it's just his face. Typical Seong. Lee Hoyoung watches them with a smile, feeling like their group has finally become a cohesive team. But despite the camaraderie, he can't shake the nagging concern about what's still to come. He looks back, and then there's Sun Seoyeon. She's already walking away, not too interested in following orders. With a dismissive tone, she asks why she should listen to them and even threatens to kill anyone who gets in her way. Naturally, Kim Seong, Seo Juno, Chai Yizil, and Lee Hoyoung exchange looks, all wondering the same thing. Should they just gang up on her? Flashback to 12 hours earlier. Tensions were high as Kim Seong, feeling cornered, spat out some pretty harsh words at Sun Seoyeon, claiming that without her gun, she'd be nothing but useless trash. Well, Seoyeon wasn't having it. In a fury, she kicked him and slammed his face into the dirt, reminding him in no uncertain terms that he's the real trash if he thinks he has multiple lives to burn through. Lee Hoyoung, watching from the sidelines, stepped in, telling Seoyeon to cut it out. He wasn't about to let her pull this in their territory. Inwardly, he reflected on his long journey to eliminate Kim Jun-song, a would-be star killer. But now he's standing face to face with a real one, Seoyeon. And worse, she's no slouch with that gun of hers. Sun Seoyeon stepped up to Hoyoung, acknowledging their not-so-pleasant reunion. Hoyoung, sensing the gravity of the moment, cut the small talk and asked her if she had something to say. A strange feeling washed over him, like a hunter realizing he's suddenly become the hunted. He took a step back just as a status window appeared, announcing that Seoyeon had marked him as her main target. Her gaze sharpened, confirming the designation. Hoyoung, confused, quickly checked the guide, his eyes widening at the implications. Back to the present, and Sun Seoyeon is already gone, leaving a thick tension in the air. Kim Seong, though, has his hands full with a massive orc. Of course, in true Seong fashion, he apologizes to the beast, half joking that it's too handsome to hit, but hey, it'll make for good experience points. As the orc falls, something unexpected happens. A portal opens. Seong, clearly startled, turns around only to find Lee Hoyoung right behind him. Hoyoung, cool as ever, asks why Seong looks so shocked, almost like he got caught doing something he shouldn't. Seong, trying and failing, To mask his anxiety, nervously laughs, saying he thought Hoyoung would have opened the portal already, but Hoyoung isn't buying it. He gives Seong a solid kick into the portal, telling him to stop messing around. With that dealt with, Hoyoung reflects on the guide's ominous warning about star killers. It said their traits would fully manifest on the Day of Blood, and if he's killed by a star killer on that day, they'll reap a huge reward. Hoyoung knows he needs to level up as much as possible before then. He's not sure when the Day of Blood will arrive, but he's got a bad feeling it's going to favor the star killer, probably with plenty of casualties. As he walks on, Hoyoung encounters a level 10 orc. This one's not exactly friendly, but Hoyoung dispatches it with ease, gaining more experience. But interestingly, no portal opens this time. He ponders whether, given enough time, he could just wipe out all the monsters on this floor. After all, not everyone has escaped yet, and Sun Seoyeon is still out there, probably slaying monsters like it's a hobby. A sudden foul stench hits him like a truck. Pinching his nose, he wonders what's causing the rotting smell. The guide window informs him that while all orcs stink, the ones that leave portals behind are especially pungent. Hoyoung turns around to see another orc, confirming the source of the odor. Wasting no time, he charges forward and slays the beast with a single swing of his sword. The status window flashes again, confirming that a new portal has appeared. Hoyoung smiles. Finally, all that effort is paying off. Sun Seoyeon, clearly irritated, stands there. As our boy put on a whole performance, loudly lamenting his terrible luck and acting as if the universe had personally cursed him to never find a portal. Sun Seoyeon, clearly on the edge of snapping, asked if he was always this unlucky. With a heavy sigh, Hoyoung replied that random luck missions were his worst enemy, claiming he had never won anything in his life. But internally, he was chuckling. His bad luck was more of a strategy, as he purposely avoided orcs that might open portals. Since Seoyeon needed to kill him on the Day of Blood, she reluctantly let him continue his hunt, unaware that Hoyoung had already found his escape. He killed orcs without portals, knowing that dying here without securing one wouldn't do Seoyeon any good either. A grin crept onto his face as the status window popped up, announcing that a player had opened a portal, leaving just 5 portals left. Hoyoung glanced at the window, feeling a little relieved that others were making their escapes without any major trouble. Still in character, he slapped his forehead dramatically and grumbled about the awful odds of these random missions while making a fuss over the dwindling portals. Seoyeon, now visibly irritated, snapped at him to stop whining and focus on the hunt. As Hoyoung continued slicing through orcs, he couldn't help but notice how much they reminded him of Kim Seyoung. Every time he cut one down, he felt a weird combination of regret and satisfaction, almost like his complicated relationship with Seoyeon herself. He stole a glance at her, amused that she was worried about him, just so she could be the one to kill him later. Teasingly, he asked why she seemed so nervous when he was the one without a portal. Seoyeon snapped back, claiming she wasn't nervous at all. He pressed further, casually asking how many portals she'd already opened. After a brief hesitation, she admitted to 5, a number that startled him. It was a lot, but still manageable. With her having opened 5 and him only 1, he calculated that if everyone else opened 1, there would still be 3 portals left. A status window confirmed this, leaving Hoyoung to wonder if he and Seoyeon might be the last ones standing on this floor. With only 10 minutes left on the clock, Hoyoung figured it was time to make his exit. He suggested to Seoyeon that they split up so he could search for a portal on his own. But before he could leave, she told him to stop. His heart skipped a beat, thinking she had figured out his plan. When he cautiously asked if she had something else to discuss, she mumbled something so quietly he almost didn't catch it. Alarm bells rang in his head, and he quickly made a move to leave, but she grabbed his sleeve, looking embarrassed. She finally admitted that she'd forgotten where she had opened her portals. Hoyoung blinked in disbelief, thinking to himself, really? Directionally challenged now? Fast forward to the lobby, and the atmosphere was buzzing with excitement. Kim Seyoung, as energetic as ever, raced over to Hoyoung, calling him big brother with all the enthusiasm of a puppy. However, the warm reunion didn't go as planned. Hoyoung's fist connected with Seyoung's face, sending him crashing to the ground. Apparently, Hoyoung wasn't quite done with the mission in his head. Sun Seoyeon, standing beside him, quipped that Seyoung looked like an orc now. Hoyoung shot her a look, silently telling her to keep that observation to herself. Cha Yiziel stepped forward, visibly relieved that Seoyeon had returned in one piece. Seo Juno expressed his relief, although his attempt at a friendly handshake was met with cold indifference as Seoyeon turned her back on him, grumbling that he was too loud. Seyoung, nursing his bruised face, muttered under his breath, calling Seoyeon little wench and complaining that they should have left her on the 4th floor. Seoyeon fired back, calling Seyoung a pig and ordering him to shut up. Seyoung, flexing his muscles, proudly corrected her. Their muscles, not fat. As Hoyoung watched their petty bickering, he wondered if he should have left Seoyeon behind after all. But then again, someone marked by the killer star wasn't going to die that easily. He figured he'd let her stick around for now and maybe get some sort of favor in return, but he was still keeping a close eye on her, especially with the looming Day of Blood ahead. Their momentary peace was shattered when a voice rang out across the lobby. The group turned to see an unexpected visitor, Kum, standing tall and smug. Without missing a beat, Sun Seoyeon fired a magic bullet straight at its face, shouting, "Why are you back here again?" Hoyoung watched in disbelief as Kum shrugged off the attack and retaliated by tossing Seoyeon against the wall. She called it a monster rabbit as she struggled to her feet. Hoyoung, surprised by how easily Seoyeon had been thrown, began to realize just how deadly Kum truly was, even if its stats suggested it was holding back. With a calm air, Kum instructed itself to stay patient, remarking that its work wasn't done yet. Then, looking at the group, it made an announcement that sent a chill down Hoyoung's spine. The next mission was about to begin. Kum, in its usual flair, made an unexpected proposition before they ascended to the next floor. With a dramatic gesture, the lobby transformed into a grand library, rows upon rows of books stretching endlessly. Its voice echoed, explaining that each of them must choose a book. This book, Kum warned, could either aid them in surviving or potentially bring about their downfall. It emphasized the gravity of their decision, telling them that their fate was in their hands. Kim Seyoung, ever the stubborn one, scoffed at the idea, outright refusing to let some stupid book decide his future. Meanwhile, Seo Juno, ever strategic, mused aloud whether he could find a manual on swordsmanship to boost his power. Kum, in its whimsical tone, reminded everyone that the contents of the books must be kept secret. Once their mission on the 5th floor began, the books would vanish. To demonstrate, Kum picked up a book titled The Way for a Cute Rabbit to Survive, showing it off as an example. With that, Kum disappeared, leaving the group in confusion. As everyone scurried to find their chosen book, Lee Hoyoung observed that most people were gravitating towards books aligned with their respective classes: martial arts, swordsmanship, magic. He approached the guide window, which oddly directed him to a novel titled SSS Rank Returner's Monopoly of Connections. Lee was taken aback, puzzled as to why the guide would recommend something that sounded like a cheap fantasy novel. He hesitated but ultimately selected it, thinking there must be a reason behind the guide's suggestion. Once the choice was made, the status window confirmed that the book was now locked to him, and its contents could not be disclosed. Lee opened the book, expecting something profound, but what he found was disappointing. A bland, generic fantasy novel. Resigning himself to his fate, he continued reading, growing more frustrated. Around him, others were absorbed in their selections, Seo Juno flipping through thawing swordsmanship, Kim Seyoung engrossed in Punch of the Fist King, and Cha Yiziel deeply focused on knowledge of the Eastern physician. Lee couldn't help but wonder if he had made the wrong choice. He glanced over at On Secheng, who was busy setting up a tent, and then noticed Sun Seoyeon muttering angrily about Kum. As she repeatedly hit a wall, Lee wisely decided to keep his distance. The status window then announced that their task was complete and that they would be moving on to the 5th floor. In a blink, the group found themselves seated at desks in what resembled a classroom. The atmosphere felt strange, and soon, murmurs began to spread. Someone wondered who their fellow classmates were, while another remarked on the eerie sensation that time had stopped here. A woman, glancing at her reflection, commented that they seemed younger. Another woman agreed, sharing the sentiment. Lee Hoyoung, looking down at himself, realized they had indeed been reverted to their younger forms, likely to match the setting of a new mission. On Secheng, now visibly skinnier, groaned about losing his well-earned muscles. Kim Seyoung, ever the joker, taunted him, calling him an anchovy. Lee found it amusing to see Seyoung in his younger, shaved head form. Cha Yiziel teased Hoyoung, noting he hadn't changed much, while Lee caught sight of a bespectacled Sun Seoyeon, who seemed even more irritable than usual. When he asked if it was her, Seoyeon removed her glasses, crushing them in her hands, and snapped, asking why he was staring. Before anyone could process the change fully, Kumkum's voice rang through the classroom speakers, asking if they were enjoying their newfound youth. It described this return to their younger selves as a beautiful gift and explained their new task. They had been transported to a dimension where both humans and monsters existed, and they were now cadets in a school that trained monster hunters. Over the next 4 days, they would face various quests, and failure would result in a death mission execution. The stakes had never been higher. Lee Hoyoung knew how serious a death mission could be, and as someone who had faced one before, he steeled himself. He silently regretted choosing a novel instead of a swordsmanship manual, but figured there had to be some purpose behind it. Just as Kumkum finished its explanation, a light swept over the group, implanting the necessary memories for their role in this world. Lee Hoyoung groaned as the memories flooded his mind, causing a painful, throbbing sensation. He now had 2 sets of memories, his own and those implanted for this mission. As the memories settled, he realized they aligned with the content of his chosen book, making him wonder if there was more to it than he initially thought. The status window confirmed the success of the memory implantation. In the now bustling classroom, the teacher passionately discussed mana manipulation, drawing diagrams on the blackboard. Seo Juno, seated next to Lee Hoyoung, leaned over and whispered that the once frozen people in the class had started to move again. Lee, lost in thought, pondered the strange parallels between their current situation and a novel. He recognized that he and his classmates were merely side characters in this world, with the true protagonist sitting in front of him. Oh Yoonam, a returner with knowledge of the future. Thanks to Yoonam's foresight, he had formed powerful connections and was on the path to greatness. Lee realized he needed to find a way to navigate this world carefully. As the teacher pointed to a complex symbol on the board, he challenged the class to explain it, offering store points as a reward. Lee Hoyoung knew the answer was beyond most students' reach, but before Oh Yoonam could respond, he confidently interrupted. He explained that the symbol represented action and that it was currently being researched by Professor Brown's team at Columbia University. The teacher was visibly impressed, his face lighting up as he praised Lee. The status window confirmed that Lee had earned store points, and he couldn't help but smile. At that moment, he realized the true value of his novel selection. It wasn't about martial prowess but about connections. And with that, Lee Hoyoung resolved to outshine Oh Yoonam, claiming all the valuable connections for himself. As they strolled through the academy's vast corridors, Kim Seyoung, ever the chatterbox, couldn't hide his curiosity. He addressed Lee Hoyoung with a playful grin, remarking on how extraordinary it was that Hoyoung had known about the mysterious action earlier. Hoyoung replied calmly, attributing his knowledge to the memories implanted by the tower. Seyoung, impressed yet envious, quipped that perhaps only Hoyoung had been granted such a good character by the tower. Hoyoung's response carried a faint edge of challenge as he suggested Seyoung try speaking to the tower if he was so envious. Trailing a few steps behind, Cha Yiziel observed their banter before asking Hoyoung when he thought their next quest would begin. Hoyoung, drawing from the intricate knowledge he had gained from the novel-like memories, responded with certainty. He estimated that the quest should start soon, likely at that very moment. As if to confirm his words, a glowing status window appeared before them, announcing their mission. Clear the dungeon beside building B37 within 60 minutes. Failure will result in a death mission. The announcement sent a jolt through the group. Hoyoung's expression hardened as he processed the importance of this quest. He realized the item dropped by the dungeon's boss monster held immense significance for the future. Initially, it was destined for Oh Yoonam, the protagonist, but Hoyoung refused to let that happen. Determined to rewrite the narrative, he urged the others to move quickly, his voice sharp with urgency, and sprinted toward the dungeon. Upon entering, another status window identified the location as the Orc Den. Oh Yoonam, already inside and clearly caught off guard, turned to the newcomers with a bewildered expression, demanding to know how they had managed to find the hidden dungeon. Hoyoung, unfazed and already cutting down an orc with practiced precision, retorted that Yoonam couldn't possibly have believed he was the only one capable of discovering it. Yoonam's shock was palpable as he watched Hoyoung and Sun Seoyeon fight with incredible skill. He silently questioned how individuals he had dismissed as ordinary could display such power. His unease deepened as he acknowledged that warriors of their caliber should be unforgettable, yet their presence in this dungeon defied his expectations. Summoning a spear in his hand with an air of authority, he couldn't afford to lose the dungeon reward. With a powerful throw, the spear tore through the air, cutting down multiple orcs in one fluid motion before returning to his grasp as though bound by some mystical force. Kim Seyoung and Cha Yiziel, observing from a safer vantage point, couldn't hide their astonishment. Seyoung exclaimed about the spear's incredible power, while Yiziel marveled at its sheer strength. Hoyoung, however, focused on Yoonam's display, acknowledging that the protagonist's prowess was as impressive in reality as it had been in the narrative. Still, Hoyoung's determination remained unshaken. He resolved to claim the dungeon's ultimate reward for himself, no matter how formidable Yoonam appeared. With 48 minutes left and 72 orcs remaining, Hoyoung calculated their chances. He knew that Yoonam's raw power outclassed his own, but Hoyoung had a keen ability to locate and exploit weaknesses in monsters. He plunged back into the battle, every move precise and deliberate, as he worked to outpace Yoonam's kill count. Meanwhile, Sun Seoyeon fought with unrelenting focus, her mind replaying the humiliation of their previous mission. The memory of Hoyoung's antics on the 4th floor fueled her resolve to outshine him this time. Her gunfire was relentless, every shot finding its mark as she fought side by side with Hoyoung. Yoonam, wielding his spear with calculated efficiency, fully embraced his role as the hero. His movements were a perfect blend of precision and power, reinforcing his position as the story's central figure. Cha Yiziel, observing from a distance, was struck by the extraordinary skill on display. She remarked to Seo Juno about how desperate Hoyoung seemed, his every action brimming with purpose. Juno, with tears glistening in his eyes, attributed Hoyoung's determination to his noble heart. He spoke passionately about Hoyoung's unwillingness to let them face a death mission, despite everything they had done to him in the past. Moved by this sentiment, Juno raised his sword and rallied the others, proclaiming that they must fight harder in Hoyoung's honor. His emotional declaration inspired a wave of fervor among the group. Hoyoung, caught off guard by the sudden outpouring of support, could only continue fighting, his expression a mix of confusion and determination. After an intense battle, the status window finally announced the defeat of all orcs and the opening of the boss room. However, the message that followed declared Oh Yoonam as the one with the right to challenge the boss monster. Hoyoung felt a surge of frustration as he realized his best efforts had fallen short. A bitter curse escaped his lips as he wrestled with the possibility of giving up. Refusing to back down, Hoyoung stepped forward and addressed Yoonam with a resolute tone, requesting the opportunity to challenge the boss. Yoonam, perplexed, questioned Hoyoung's sudden request. Hoyoung, his expression turning mysterious, claimed to understand how to break the cycle of regression. This statement shocked Yoonam. Hoyoung, with a smirk, stood his ground, not willing to give up the reward. The door creaked open, and the status window flickered to life, announcing Lee Hoyoung's entrance into the boss room. His steps were steady, but his mind replayed the charged moments from earlier. Oh Yoonam had stood before him, spear drawn and unwavering. He had wanted to know who Hoyoung truly was, his voice brimming with suspicion. Hoyoung, calm and deliberate, had urged Yoonam to lower his weapon. However, Yoonam had refused, pressing harder for answers. The spear's edge grazed Hoyoung's neck, drawing a thin line of blood that trickled down his skin. Hoyoung, unflinching, had questioned the urgency of Yoonam's curiosity. Instead, he had cryptically asked whether Yoonam wasn't more interested in the winter awaiting him at age 32. The mention of that age had sent a jolt through Yoonam, his anger flaring. In a grand, rain-battered building, a man had once reflected on the origins of Yoonam's curse. He had spoken with a blend of admiration and envy, remarking on the endless regressions that began when Yoonam was 17 and stretched to his 32nd year. Oh Yoonam, cradling a glass of wine, had nodded solemnly as the man recounted the anguish of living through the same stretch of time repeatedly. He had leaned against the rain-speckled window, his frustration evident as he cursed the unyielding loop of regression. In the present, Hoyoung had pushed Yoonam's spear aside with deliberate precision. He had proposed a deal. If Yoonam allowed him to face the boss monster, he would reveal a way to escape the cursed cycle of regression. For Yoonam, who had endured centuries of torment, the offer was too tempting to ignore. Though his mistrust lingered, he backed away, warning Hoyoung that betrayal would have dire consequences. A status window appearing to declare that Yoonam had granted Hoyoung permission to challenge the boss room. Inside, Hoyoung faced the boss monster, a hulking orc warrior exuding menace. The creature's guttural growls reverberated through the room, sending a shiver down Hoyoung's spine. Sweat dotted his brow, but he steadied himself, reminding himself that this was just a novel. Even without precise stats or a detailed guide, he relied on his knowledge of the strategies to defeat it. The orc emitted a swirling smoke and unleashed a deafening roar, an intimidation tactic designed to crush the challenger's spirit. Ho Young, protected by his heightened senses that shielded him from mental attacks, remained unfazed. Determined, he charged forward, executing his first strategy. He focused on the monster's vulnerable lower body, knowing its upper body was as hard as steel. Striking at its legs with sharp precision, he dodged the orc's retaliatory swings. Exploiting the opening, he unleashed a flurry of strikes to its knees, finally bringing the beast down. With the orc collapsed and vulnerable, Ho Young didn't hesitate. He delivered the finishing strike, declaring triumphantly that the reward was his. The status window confirmed the victory, announcing the orc warrior's defeat and the item drop that followed. Later, the room echoed with playful shouts as Kim Se-young and Ho Young engaged in yet another round of rock paper scissors. Se-young's loud groans of frustration filled the air as he lamented his latest loss. Ho Young, ever composed, basked in his 11th consecutive win. Se-young accused Ho Young of cheating, his tone half serious, but Ho Young dismissed the claim with a smug grin. He insisted there was no way to cheat in such a straightforward game and demanded his reward. Begrudgingly, Se-young muttered curses under his breath as he handed over the gold. From the sidelines, Seo Juno couldn't help but marvel at Ho Young's uncanny skill, even in something as trivial as a children's game. Ho Young, sipping from his cup, caught a gleam from the ring on his middle finger. His thoughts wandered to the two mythical items mentioned in the novel. The first, Gungnir, was Yunam's legendary weapon, famed for its flawless accuracy. The second was the Ring of Nick, a relic that bestowed unparalleled luck upon its wearer, a boon Ho Young now possessed. He examined the ring with satisfaction, recognizing its immense potential as a safeguard for the trials ahead. Though he knew Yunam would face many of those trials without such an advantage, Ho Young resolved to provide him with the vital information needed to fulfill his greatest desire. His musings were interrupted by a loud thud as Sun Seoyeon slammed her cup onto the table. She locked eyes with Ho Young, challenging him to a game. For her, rock paper scissors wasn't just luck but a test of agility, her confidence bolstered by her near 50 agility stat. Ho Young raised an eyebrow, feigning indifference, and asked how much she was willing to bet. Without hesitation, Seoyeon offered 3,000 gold. Kim Se-young, standing nearby, gawked at the sum in disbelief. Ho Young, after a moment's thought, smirked and proposed raising the stakes to 5,000 gold. The following day, the group gathered at the training area, where Ho Young took in the scene with an amused grin. It was a classic moment straight out of a novel, the evaluation of strength, centered on the ultimate test of power, striking a punch machine. Oh, and by the way, Sun Seoyeon lost the game previously, losing 5,000 gold. The professor addressed the cadets in the training hall. Before them stood a massive blue crystal. The professor explained the task. They would strike the crystal with their weapons, and the resulting numerical score would measure their magic power. These scores would determine the dungeon practical groups in 2 days, a crucial test that could shape their futures. Seo Juno, his eyes gleaming with curiosity, turned to Lee Ho Young, commenting on how excited he was to see the true strength of their peers. The first cadet stepped forward, his face a mixture of determination and anxiety. Gripping his weapon tightly, he swung with all his might. The crystal responded with a brilliant flare, displaying a score of 43. Murmurs rippled through the room as cadets commented on the impressive strength of his first attempt. Seo Juno observed the reactions around him and deduced that 43 was considered a high score. Ho Young, drawing on the memories implanted within him, recalled that this cadet was indeed known for his strength. When Seo Juno's name was called, he approached confidently. With a focused strike, he hit the crystal, and the glowing numbers settled at 69. Gasps of astonishment echoed through the hall as whispers of his strength spread. Juno, with a modest smile, noted that his power might indeed be formidable. Kim Se-young couldn't resist the spotlight. Shoving Juno aside with a cocky grin, he proclaimed himself the king of punch machines. With a loud roar, he slammed his fist into the crystal. The result? 75. Flexing his biceps, he taunted the cadets to train harder and eat well. Someone exclaimed in disbelief at his ability to achieve such a high score without using a weapon. The hall fell silent when Sun Seoyeon stepped forward. Her cold, focused expression was unwavering as she fired a magic bullet at the crystal, the shot grazing Se-young's face, and the score froze at 98. The room erupted in shock, cadets questioning how such a feat was possible and marveling at her ability to infuse mana into a gun. Ho Young couldn't help but feel a swell of pride, thinking that his tower teammates were leagues ahead of these academy cadets. Then, with a loud noise, Oh Yunam crystal blazed, displaying an astonishing 115. Ho Young's eyes widened as he recognized the sheer power behind Yunam's attack. A vague memory surfaced in his mind, hinting that Yunam was destined for something extraordinary. Later, in the cafeteria, Kim Se-young devoured his meal with enthusiasm. He teased Ho Young about his score, wondering why it hadn't been higher. Ho Young shrugged, replying nonchalantly that there wasn't any reward worth trying for. Chai Yizil chuckled, noting Se-young's peculiar ability to speak coherently despite eating. Seo Juno joined in, remarking that Ho Young's relaxed attitude was beginning to intrigue him. Ho Young, lost in thought, reflected on his own score of 64. It wasn't low enough to draw attention, but more importantly, it kept him in Yunam's practical group without being chosen as a leader, exactly what he had aimed for. Their conversation was abruptly cut short when a status window appeared before them. The second quest had begun. The details were clear. They had 1 hour to rescue Oh Yunam from the river garden. Chai Yizil, recalling Yunam's earlier performance, asked if he was the strong cadet they had seen in the dungeon. Seo Juno confirmed it, speculating that Yunam might have fallen into a trap. Despite the proximity of the river garden, the urgency of the mission weighed on them. Ho Young's expression darkened. His knowledge of the novel painted a grim picture. After one of Yunam's regressions, he had disciplined some troublemakers at the academy. Among them was the son of Park Yongsik, the guild leader of Red Moon. Furious, Park Yongsik had sent elite hunters to brutalize Yunam, leaving him on the brink of death. In the story, Yunam was saved by the Ring of Nick, but this time the responsibility lay with them. At the river garden, Oh Yunam knelt on the ground, his breathing labored. A man behind him sneered, mocking Yunam for daring to stand against their young master. The man adjusted his black glasses, only to be interrupted by a flash of light. A magic bullet from Sun Seoyeon struck him directly. Ho Young, startled by her sudden action, questioned her motive. Seoyeon's reply was icy. She simply didn't like him. Kim Se-young rushed forward, pointing out that this man seemed to prey on those without powerful backing. Ho Young, visibly annoyed, drew his sword and ordered the group to advance. The enemies exchanged remarks about the newcomers, speculating on their status as academy cadets. One of them created a defensive shield, questioning the presence of a gun. Another taunted his injured ally for letting the brats land a hit, only to be met with a sharp retort. Ho Young observed the situation carefully. Though Seoyeon's attack seemed impulsive, its timing was impeccable. It had created the opening they desperately needed. Seizing the chance, Yunam rose to his feet and attacked the injured man, his spear slicing through the air. However, the other 2 enemies dodged his strikes effortlessly. Yunam, glancing at Ho Young, expressed his confusion over their persistence, but stressed that there was no time for questions. Ho Young agreed, suggesting they focus on the battle. Kim Se-young targeted the weakened opponent, unleashing his level 2 stone fist spell, but the man raised a barrier just in time, deflecting the attack. As the battle intensified, the injured man, furious, hurled insults at the group, calling them disrespectful brats. Kim Se-young was flung across the floor by the barrier, his body skidding to a halt with a pained grunt. The man who had attacked him laughed cruelly, his voice dripping with derision. He observed that the cadets, sheltered within the academy's walls, were completely unprepared for the harsh realities of the outside world. The battle resumed with even greater intensity. Amid the fray, Lee Ho Young took charge, positioning Sun Seoyeon at the rear to cover them, while the others focused on the front lines. Seoyeon, however, fired her magic bullets with precision, silently defying the need for instructions. Ho Young directed the injured cadets to retreat to Chai Yizil for healing before rejoining the fight. As Oh Yunam staggered toward Yizil, her magic quickly mended his wounds, leaving him staring at his healed hand in astonishment. He couldn't hide his amazement at the extent of her abilities. Ho Young, locked in fierce combat, reminded his teammates that the quest was designed to be completed, and urged them to draw on everything they had learned. Inspired by his words, Seo Juno delivered a powerful thaw slash, his blade glowing with frost as it struck one of the men. Kim Se-young, channeling his strength, unleashed the first punch of the Fist King, his fist connecting with another enemy. Amid the chaos, Cheng seemed oddly detached, methodically setting up a tent in the middle of the battlefield. Ho Young couldn't help but glance at him in confusion, wondering if the stress of the situation had finally taken its toll on him. One of the men sneered at their efforts, dismissing their skills and training as irrelevant. He mocked the idea that they could rely on such trivial methods to win. His mockery turned into a fierce charge, joined by his two accomplices, as they lunged at the cadets with deadly intent. The ground shook violently from a powerful explosion. Ho Young, struggling to catch his breath, realized the gap between his team's abilities and their opponent's experience. The men's coordination and relentless assaults seemed insurmountable. He strategized quickly, knowing that taking down even one of them might destabilize their formation. Yet every approach felt like facing an impenetrable iron door. Chai Yiziel, maintaining her composure, prepared to assist. The man leading the charge smirked, belittling their persistence and noting that the young cadets might have promising futures as hunters, but it wouldn't matter if they didn't survive the day. His ally, however, warned that their delay was becoming a problem. Frustrated by the drawn-out fight, the first man cursed under his breath and made a reckless move, targeting Yiziel. He declared his intent to start with her, his charge filled with lethal intent. Ho Young shouted in alarm, urging his team to act. Yunam responded instantly, throwing his spear with precision. The man dodged at the last moment, his fury evident as he cursed Yunam. Meanwhile, the other two men advanced, their focus momentarily scattered. Ho Young's sharp eyes caught the shift. The once unbreakable formation had cracked, creating a crucial opening. One of the men, realizing this, vowed to eliminate the cadets entirely, his voice trembling with frustration. Ho Young, sensing the rising tension in his enemies, capitalized on their impatience. He remarked on how the chairman of the Red Moon Guild, Park Yongsik, was known for his infamous temper and likely already seething at their failure to complete their task. The men froze, visibly unsettled by the mention of their chairman. Their confidence wavered, their fear of Park Yongsik's wrath taking hold. Ho Young and his team seized the opportunity. Yunam launched himself at one of the men, his spear striking with precision. Sun Seoyan fired a series of magic bullets, each one hitting its mark with unerring accuracy. Ho Young joined the attack, his sword cutting through their defenses with calculated strikes. As the two remaining men glanced down at their fallen comrades sprawled on the ground, their expressions shifted to one of resignation. They turned their gaze to Li Ho Young and his group, who now encircled them with an unmistakable air of determination. One of the men broke into a casual laugh, acknowledging that the fight was over. With a weary sigh, he remarked that it was time to call it a day. They hoisted their injured companion onto their shoulders. The man joked that their chairman would likely be furious upon seeing their current state, but added that witnessing Korea's future hunters in action made it all worthwhile. His companion, less amused, muttered complaints about how their fallen teammate always acted recklessly, leaving others to deal with the consequences. With a carefree wave and a playful taunt, they called the cadets kiddos and told them to take care before disappearing into the night. The status window flickered to life, announcing their quest's success. The group erupted into cheers, celebrating their victory with shouts of relief and joy. Amid the celebration, Li Ho Young exhaled deeply, allowing himself a moment of respite. His gaze fell on the status window, noting with satisfaction that only 2 minutes remained on the quest timer. Yunam approached him, a hint of curiosity in his voice, and asked if Ho Young had anticipated today's events. Ho Young, deflecting, reminded Yunam that they had just saved him and hinted that gratitude should come first. Flustered, Yunam mumbled a quick thanks, which Ho Young pretended not to hear, his teasing tone making the moment lighter. Yunam repeated his thanks more earnestly, prompting Ho Young to silently reflect on how significant this regression must be for him. For Yunam, this was a unique experience, unlike anything he had encountered in his countless cycles. Turning to leave, Ho Young cautioned Yunam to tread carefully, warning that this regression would prove more challenging than any before. Curiosity flickered in Yunam's eyes as he asked if Ho Young, too, was a regressor. With a knowing smile, Ho Young replied that he was something far beyond that. Yunam, intrigued, placed a hand on Ho Young's shoulder and reminded him that he had yet to explain how to break the curse of regression. The following morning, the classroom buzzed with excitement as the professor prepared to announce the group assignments for the dungeon practical scheduled for the next day. The professor began announcing the names of group leaders, but Li Ho Young, lost in thought, barely registered the words. Ho Young's thoughts lingered on Yunam. His eyes wandered to the status window displaying the armor of Thea, a reward offering a 25% increase in defense. The memory of Yunam admiring the armor and expressing his gratitude the previous night filled Ho Young with pride. The professor's voice broke through Ho Young's musings as he announced Group 4's leader, Yunam. Ho Young's attention sharpened as the professor continued, listing the names of Yunam's group members. To his satisfaction, his name was among them, along with Wu Jiho, Shin Sungbyum, and Go Young-woo. Internally, Ho Young celebrated the strategic success of being placed in this group, knowing it brought him closer to the best possible rewards. Later that afternoon, under the golden sunlight, tension simmered between Yunam and Li Ho Young. Yunam, visibly uneasy, confronted Ho Young about the upcoming dungeon. He expressed his growing concern, knowing that the dungeon was about to enter a berserk state. Though dungeon berserk events were not entirely uncommon, the timing felt suspicious. Yunam confessed that despite experiencing multiple regressions, he had never been able to uncover the cause of these disruptions. Desperation laced his voice as he pleaded with Ho Young for any insights, suspecting that Ho Young's role might be more significant than he let on. Ho Young, reflecting on the plot of the novel he remembered, recalled that 3 groups, including his own, would face the berserk dungeon. Only Group 4, Yunam's group, had survived the disaster. However, the novel never explained why the berserk event occurred, leaving Ho Young without answers. With a heavy heart, he admitted as much. Frustrated, Yunam grabbed Ho Young by the collar, his determination flaring despite his helplessness. He insisted that even if the situation seemed inevitable, they had to try to make a difference. Ho Young, overwhelmed by the pressure, shouted back in frustration, lamenting the lack of clues from the novel's author. The commotion drew the attention of Sun Seoyan, who peeked around a corner. Her eyes widened in shock as she took in the sight. Ho Young's shirt was torn, Yunam's tie hung loosely, and the two stood gripping each other's clothing in a tense standoff. Misinterpreting the scene, she froze before mumbling that she must have wandered into the wrong place again, and quickly turned away. Both Ho Young and Yunam scrambled to explain, their protests lost in the awkwardness of the moment. At the dungeon entrance, Group 4 stood in silence as the professor commanded them to enter. As they crossed the threshold, the status window activated, detailing their task to clear the dungeon as part of the practical test. Ho Young exhaled deeply, his thoughts still clouded by Seoyan's earlier glare and the unresolved berserk dungeon mystery. Yunam, taking charge, suggested splitting up to cover more ground. He reminded everyone to use their radios in case of trouble. Ho Young chose a direction and began exploring, his thoughts consumed by the chaos he anticipated. He categorized the groups in his mind: Group 4, his own; Group 9, which included Chai Yiziel and Sun Seoyan; and Group 12, led by Kim Sayong. He felt confident about Group 9's survival, given Yiziel's healing skills and Seoyan's formidable strength. As for Group 12, he could only wish them luck. His focus snapped back to reality as 2 monsters appeared before him. Tightening his grip on his sword, he prepared to engage. Suddenly, he felt a presence behind him. Turning, he was startled to find Go Young-woo clinging to him, tears glistening in the boy's eyes. Young-woo, the youngest member of the group, looked up at him with a mix of fear and apology. Ho Young could only stare in silent concern, wondering why Go Young-woo was crying.
To be continued. If you want to watch the next part, then like and subscribe and let me know in the comment of what recap you want to watch next.